Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show by North American StarCraft 2 players. Every Friday and Saturday, we'll highlight an up-and-coming North American to learn more about their personality and their playstyle. Over 4 weeks, we'll take a look at 8 players before they participate in the Breakout Invitational for over $1,000. Let's learn a little bit about the next Breakout player.
Hello, I'm Jared George. I'm 17 years old and I play Zerg. Right now, what I do for a living is I'm a student. I'm going into my senior year of high school, and that's pretty much all I do right now. The most interesting fact about myself would probably be that when I was younger, I could solve a Rubik's Cube in under a minute. It was like the first thing that I really got into, and I practiced it a little bit, and I got pretty good, and I think I got it done in like 45 seconds once. It's not like world record, but I thought it was cool, pretty fast. I used to be very cheesy, very all-in-ish. I thought that was the best way to play, but now I've come to standardize my play and become more well-rounded. So I think that I also keep the standard macro games in my play, but I like to still use those all-ins and cheeses to try to get ahead and mix with my opponent. Why do I deserve the chance to be the next breakout player? I think that I deserve a second chance to break out. Last year, about a year ago, I had a pretty good opportunity to break out. I qualified for Challenger League and I got second in the Breakout Invitational. But at that time, I had a job and school and friends, and just too much going on at that time. So I wasn't able to practice at the level that I think I wanted to. That meant that I couldn't get to the professional kind of level and compete in tournaments. So I kind of squandered that chance that I had. But now I think I'm getting back to the level that it was last year and respect everybody else. And I think that if I can do well in this Breakout Invitational, I'll be able to motivate myself and then start winning more tournaments and hopefully get to that competitive level and start going to events and doing well. What StarCraft means to me in a practical sense would probably be it's a hobby that I enjoy, and it's also become sort of like a part-time job, which has been nice. And it's also my competitive outlet. I think it's the only really aspect of my life where I compete with other people. Like in school, it's not really that competitive, you know. And then I do some sports like cross country, but in that it's just more fun. I'm just having a good time running around. I'm not really competitive in that. But StarCraft's the one thing which I practice and I try to get really good at so I can compete with other people and then just show how good I am. And thank you for watching, and I hope that I'll be able to see you in the next Breaking Out season.
Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Fear Dragon, and today I'm joined here by Out JonSnow. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great.
It's good to have you on, and I've got to say, man, it's been a while. It's been almost about a year now since I've actually had you on the show. You were the first returnee of Breaking Out. You've been staying active in StarCraft, but the big question on everyone's mind, man, why haven't you broken out yet?
I guess I was spending too much time, at school and stuff like that. I think hopefully this year will be my year to break out and finally go to some events and win them.
For those who don't know, he actually did get second in the first Breakout Invitational. This season, we do actually have qualifiers, and you made it through the very first qualifier that actually happened. How was that? How did that go?
It was a little more intimidating than I thought. Like, I think I'd faced BioIce to qualify, and he's a really good player. He plays a ton, especially on EU and NA. So I was a little afraid. I ended up being able to beat him, but especially in the first game, he did a kind of a cheesy play, and I thought I had lost, but it turned out all right.
In this year, what exactly have you been up to? Just like playing. I've seen you go to a lot or participate in a lot of events.
Sorry. No problem.
Guest appearance by JonSnow's mom. But yeah, what have you been up to in the past year? You've been going to a lot of events and everything. How have they been going?
I went to the past year. I've only been to 2 events in person. One was a LAN in Boston, which I won, and then I also went to the high school Star League Grand Finals in California, which was really cool. I ended up our team took 4th out of the 4 people that got out there, so it was kind of bittersweet, but it was really nice to get out there and enjoy the trip. Yeah, trying to do any online tournaments that I can compete in. I qualified for the Destiny 1 Invitational. I think that was really cool. Did the ladder. But I ended up, got kind of wrecked in that, but it was still really fun to play against Colt. So I think I felt better now that I qualified for that, so I feel like I was improving.
Would you say that you feel like you're kind of on the top form that you've ever been right now?
Yeah, as far as my consistency, I think I'm definitely at the top.
So that does beg the question, though, Jared. WCS, you've been making it every season. I watch those brackets, man. Every
Yep.
single season for 2014, you get to like the semifinals or like the finals, the round right before you're about to qualify.
Yeah,
And so what happens? You never
I don't
make
know,
it.
man. I guess I'm tired at the end, and then someone's always just a little bit better than me. It's been pretty rough, those qualifiers. I always get really close,
Yeah.
and they're tough. But I think this next qualifier, definitely, I think I'll be able to qualify.
Yeah, man. Maybe
Which is
this time you won't have a Vila holding up the bracket for 3 hours,
Yeah, it was like 3 a.m. in the morning when we got to play our last game.
waiting to play your second round match 3 hours into the qualifier. That was something else.
Yeah, that was fun.
Do you get nervous in that final round? Is it just the opponents are better and you're kind of just getting matched up against like the strongest people in your bracket that you feel? Like, what exactly is that?
Yeah, like the past 2 seasons, I lost to, I think, Guitar Cheese 2 seasons ago, and he was really good. He qualified. He's actually in Premier this season, which was really impressive. So I think like that was just bad luck. Like he was one of the best players in NA.
Mhm.
And from then, I think I just kept getting Protoss players, and I kept losing, which is a little unfortunate. I think I've improved my ZVP though, but hopefully I won't get any Protosses next round.
How are you feeling about ZVZ, man? You used to tell me that it felt a little bit weird.
I think I've made my ZVC a lot more safer. I haven't been doing as many all-ins because the kind of the gasless style came about, and it's a lot more roach play now than Mutalisk play, which I think I am a lot better suited for. Mutalisk was just always weird, and I felt really fragile. Like you'd lose one Muta, and then you just lose the game. So I think the roach play, either going for gasless or with gas, has been really fun. There's still some all-ins you can do, and I try to mix those in when I can. But I'm definitely trying to become a more solid player who can play macro games. I think you can't open one build out every game, but I think like gasless double evo roach would probably be the most standard thing you can do. Either going like pool first or hatch first, depending on how greedy you want to be. From there, you just get roaches, you take a third, then you can get burrow and some fancy things like that, or you can just do a huge timing and see if you can kill them.
Tell me, in ZVZ, what do you feel if you had to describe one strength and one weakness that you had in the matchup? What would those two things be?
I think I have pretty good decision making when it comes to when I need to move out with my army or take certain engagements. Like sometimes you'll realize that your opponent will be countering you, and you'll have to either just push across the map and just attack them and try to end the game, or you'll go back and defend. I think that's when I really excel in ZVZ. I think my one weakness would be sometimes I just choose the wrong build. Like I'll just 9-pull in a series when I probably shouldn't be doing that, and then they'll backfire and they'll blind counter it. When I think I should do that still a bit less. The transition, is still hard.
I feel like you have a really good grasp on sort of the in-game game sense. Like you have a really good idea when you're in the game, but before the game, when you're kind of deciding on the builders or whatever that you want to do, you struggle a little bit more with that. Do you say that's accurate?
Yeah, that's exactly what is my problem. Because I'm in the game, you're looking in the loading screen, you're like, all right, what build should I do? And you're like weighing all the options, and then you just get really nervous, and then you pick one that you probably shouldn't have picked. Or sometimes you get lucky, but it's definitely before the game, I psych myself out too much. I need to be more confident in my play. Because I think, especially now, I'm a lot better than I was a year ago, and I think I can take on a lot of the best players in NA without any gimmicks.
Well, I hope you sent me a good replay then, because I'm looking forward to seeing the ZVZ now, man. I want to see the new JonSnow, the new Jared, because you know what? I've been hearing talk from a lot of players, and the funny thing is, a lot of players, they kind of say like, okay, yeah, JonSnow, he's maybe not broken out yet, but everybody seems to have a lot of respect for you. So I'm looking forward to this, man. We're going to jump into the ZVZ. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.
It's game time! Zerg versus Zerg.
Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players that you need to know about. Today on the show, we're going to be jumping into the Zerg versus Zerg here on the map Overgrowth. Let's go ahead and jump in and introduce the players as we spawn down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map on top of the red Zerg player. It is once again a barcode player. Ladies and gentlemen, barcodes! Applause for all of you hiding your identities and being a little too afraid to play. Just gonna say that. Just play with your name out there, but let's give it up for the barcode. And his opponent, spawning up here in the top right-hand corner of the map as the blue Zerg player, goes by his actual name. Amazing! You can still play when people know who you are. It is going to be, representing Solaris Gaming, JonSnow. And sorry guys, a little bit of salt coming out over there as I do not always enjoy the barcode. Sometimes I just want to know who the heck is playing so I can have a little bit of thought and analysis about what their playstyle is and all that kind of good stuff. But I guess that is part of the reason why these players do go on their barcodes, to hide what their playstyle is before they actually start playing. That way it's a little bit harder to hard counter and all that good stuff. Maybe they're even streaming and they just don't want people to think, oh, well, is that person streaming right now? Maybe I can stream snipe them. Of course, JonSnow not going to be doing anything of the sort, and actually going to just be going for that spawning pool first. It is a ZVZ. His opponent going for the hatch first. As you know, usually whenever I talk with a Zerg player, they kind of say, you know what, the difference between a hatch first and a spawning pool first, not the biggest deal, but ooh, going for the hatch and then gas geyser. This is a little bit on the greedier side from our barcode Zerg player over here. JonSnow, he's going to be going for everything relatively normally timed still, though. I mean, the spawn pool wasn't unbelievably early. He's still going for the hatchery immediately afterwards. So it's going to actually in my opinion, be a little bit difficult to actually punish this, as the Zerg player over here down the bottom left-hand corner going to be able to get up that nice and fast Zergling speed over JonSnow, who still has not grabbed either of those gas guys. If we don't see it sometime in the next, 15-20 seconds, I'm going to start thinking that JonSnow may be going for a gasless expand. Now, this is something that was popular for a while in ZVZ. It was honestly something that a lot of Zerg players were saying, this is the future of ZVZ, going for this gasless. We figured out how to defend against those speed Zergling pushes and everything long enough to get up our double gas geysers and start powering up on that gas and eventually get out that Baneling Nest, or, it's Baneling Nest for safety, but more often than not, get up that fast Roach Warren and really just get a great economy out of it. But, right now, it's sort of, we've been seeing it less and less as of late. I think that a lot of Zerg players are starting to feel, you know what? You lose a lot of that map control when you go for that very, very slow gas geyser takeage. When you go for the gasless expand. So a lot of Zerg players have been shying away from it, but JonSnow going to be going for it regardless. Some nice micro going down over here. It looks like the barcode Zerg player going to win out on that Zergling micro battle. As a single Zergling for JonSnow, just going to be content with getting a nice scout off and sees, okay, you have the gas geyser, you have the spawning pool, your queens are just now popping out, so you can get a pretty good feel of where your opponent is at from that. You can say, okay, my opponent went for the hatch first, that's totally fine. I have a gasless expand, so all I have to do is make sure I defend, don't take too much damage, and I'm going to have an extra queen out or two. I'm going to be able to, have a really, really nice situation over here. The Zergans coming in over here. Oh, drones coming off the line as they transfer down. Managed to pick off both of those Zerglings and actually stop the scouting of either the gas geysers from JonSnow. That's actually going to be a little bit annoying for our barcode Zerg player over here. But with, of course, actually, is Zerg Speed finished researching? Did he actually finish? I don't think he finished researching Zergling speed. Actually, I don't think that he researched Zergling speed. In fact, he does still have 100 gas, but he just puts that straight into the lair tech, and oh my god, this is really, really interesting. Coming out from our Zerg player. He's going for the third expansion. This kind of does make sense. When you have the earlier gas geyser, you might not have as many queens, you might not be able to get up creep spread, or of course, the large number of larva injects, etc., or just that kind of early defense. But, what you do have is map control. So why not use that map control to take this third expansion a little bit earlier? You can kind of say, what is my opponent really going to do about it for a little while? As long as I eventually get up that lair tech, or, eventually get up a Roach Warren, etc., I can eventually power up enough units to get that defense up. And JonSnow, he's going to get up an Evolution Chamber. He's going to get up his Roach Warren for himself. Doesn't have his lair tech started just yet. Only sitting on those two gas geysers, but very soon I think that he's going to be able to power out a large number of those roaches. Third gas guys are coming out. This does indicate to me that maybe JonSnow is looking to be a little bit aggressive once that roach warren pops. Maybe once that +1 missile attacks actually does finish up. Now, the barcode Zerg player coming over here saying, okay, you still don't have your third expansion. That's all well and good. Might actually decide to check over here just in case. It's not a very common thing, but sometimes you can get a Zerg player who's a little bit cheeky. But I guess tagging that Zelnaga Watchtower, that's going to be more than enough to actually get the information he needs. JonSnow finally taking that third expansion, catching up with his opponent who's already finished up his third expansion. But you know, once again, I feel like JonSnow, he's going to want to do a little bit of pressure with this Roach Warren, and plus with the +1 missile attacks finished up over here on this finishing up on this evolution chamber. Still has some time to go, another 100 or so seconds, but Overseer comes in over here and sees, oh my god, you're just only kind of getting your lair finished up? Well, I should be a little bit careful considering that, you know, his lair went up much earlier. He finally has some of his roaches out. It's actually, it's very surprising how much earlier JonSnow got that Roach Warren, but he still ends up getting his roaches out much later than the barcode Zerg player over here. Now, a lot of Zergans were actually made over here, and that's kind of what I was talking about. I mean, the Roach is made much earlier for the barcode Zerg player. But actually, JonSnow opting to go with a lot of these speed Zerglings to try and get on some nice harassment. And he sends some Zergans over to each one of these bases. He actually managed to get some decent damage done over the third expansion. And actually, now on top of a lot of those drones over in the natural expansion, and over in the main base, he does get cleaned up. But once again, he just managed to do a decent amount of damage. Kills off 6 workers, forces out a lot of units, and also gets a very good scat off on exactly how many roaches his opponent has, but still, he traded off a lot of larvae to try and kill off 7 drones, and I guess, what, maybe 1 or 2 of those roaches? Yeah, it's not exactly the most cost-effective trade over there for JonSnow. He's going to be a little bit careful now to say, you know what, I need to make sure I don't die to some kind of big counter-pressure attack. He's going to be pumping out some roaches as fast as he can in case that his opponent decides to go for some kind of big counter-attack, but you know, his opponent doesn't actually have well, okay, I take it back. He does actually have the +1 missile attacks upgrade, as you can see over here in this beautiful game heart overlay. Shout out to Ryan Shooter for that. But you know, at the end of the day, I still feel like, you know, JonSnow, he's been able to get that nice little drone lead. As long as there is no big doom push or death push coming out from his opponent, he should actually be in an okay situation, because he's been able to catch up on that third expansion. He has that third expansion up and mining. He has a nice little well, he had a nice little drone lead. It looks kind of fallen a little bit further behind now, as he's 53 drones to 62 drones of his Zerg opponent. But he has actually been able to, you know, make use of the fact that he has 5 more extra roaches now, so he's going to be okay on the defense. This is kind of the game of drones and the great game of Zerg players, where you're kind of just trading off and saying, okay, can I get 1 or 2 extra drones over here with this extra round of larvae? You kind of trade back and forth. Occasionally you are up on your opponent in drones, occasionally your opponent is up on roaches over you. And you just have to make sure that you don't fall too far behind on either one of those counts, or your opponent can go for that big death push, or your opponent actually just, you know, gets up more drones than you and is able to out-econ you, able to get up that extra little, you know, Hydralisk Den or something else, some extra level of tech, or even just a couple more roaches, and you can end up losing the game that way. But it doesn't look like it's going to be the case from either of these players. Now it's starting to become a little bit more of a passive game. Some light bits of pressure, he's Zergling here, a Zergling there, trying to deny that 4th expansion, or not really deny it, I shouldn't say that. It's more just trying to get vision of the 4th expansion going down. Now, even though he doesn't see the 4th expansion with his vision, he kind of knows that it's going down. He saw the roaches over there. He saw the drone over there. Should be pretty obvious that it's going down. Creep spread actually coming out for JonSnow. Kind of interesting, considering you take a look at the Zerg player over here. Not really getting too much creep spread up. Finally just now getting up a little bit of that creep spread. But, you know, the creep spread's always been an interesting decision. But hold that thought, we could be seeing an engagement over here as the Zerg player, the red Zerg player, come into a bit of an awkward angle. But honestly, it looks like he may just have a couple more roaches. Yeah, 52 roaches to his opponent's 50. Not a huge lead over here, but still it could be the lead that takes him to victory. Nonetheless, JonSnow now pushing in over here with the remainder of his roaches, the blue Zergling, or the blue roaches, I should say, getting the better end of the concave initially, and actually is able to take out a nice little lead in this engagement, even though we may have been seeing actually a relatively even number of these roaches in the beginning of that engagement. You have to consider that some of those roaches were still moving their way across the map, not actually able to participate in the fight, but now he's able to regroup with his reinforcements reinforcements and is able to maybe prevent JonSnow from pushing in too far. JonSnow may be pushing in a little bit too far, but he has a great concave going down over here. Is that going to be enough for JonSnow? He's pushing in over here. Some more of his reinforcements are now coming in, and he's able to actually section off a couple of these roaches. This is the red Zerg player is, that is, to try and pull off a couple of JonSnow's roaches. Now JonSnow may be overcommitting over here, as once again it's that back and forth, the beautiful back and forth between these two Zerg players, where it just goes back and forth, and the Zerg players just coming in with their reinforcements over and over and over again. One time for a couple seconds they're going to be losing in that engagement, but then next couple of seconds later they actually end up winning because their reinforcements arrive. It's a little bit crazy. Kind of like actually going to Great America or something, if you're not familiar with that theme park, and going to the tide pool is just back and forth and back and forth, and eventually one person will you'll kind of end up drifting somewhere. You'll either end up drifting ahead or you'll end up drifting behind. But JonSnow's actually been able to snag up that gold expansion during the midst of all this. Oh, Burrow actually coming out over here for our red Zerg player, but oh, a lot of these roaches actually getting detected. He ends up losing a substantial portion of them. Some of those roaches now moving over to that gold expansion and realizing there's not a whole lot over there. He's going to be moving over to the third expansion and sending a couple over to the natural expansion. Is he going to be able to accomplish a whole lot over here? This is definitely enough to at least snipe off a queen or two. Gonna be able to snipe off that queen over that third expansion. A couple of these roaches now moving into the main base, just gonna be as difficult as possible to pick off. And you know, the roaches now doing some nice damage over to the drones, and this is actually really, really nice. He was already kind of maintaining a small little drone lead. Gonna be able to push that in a little bit further, especially with that queen over the main base being sniped off. That's gonna cut in onto the larva injects. Now some of those drones being picked up. JonSnow a little bit slow to actually react over here as he's trying to decide where do I need to go over here, and the third expansion still has a couple of those roaches still left alive, but now we end up seeing the roaches over here from the barcode Zerg player trying to push in. The banelings coming in. JonSnow unable to really go back and send units back home to defend against those roaches. He's gonna have to go for it at this point. He's got to make do with the army that he has, because he's already lost a handful of those drones, a large number, down about 15 drones. It looks like 17 drones already killed during the course of this game. And with the banelings, I mean, the banelings are an interesting decision. These roaches will definitely be clumping up, but is that splash damage going to be enough? He ends up getting a lot of damage actually done with those banelings. A lot of splash damage done over there. Is that going to be enough? Yeah, it looks like he actually may have the overwhelming number of roaches. These roaches still over in JonSnow's expansions, denying the mining, but is it going to matter? The roach count from our barcode Zerg player is dwindling quite heavily. 24 roaches to the 54 of JonSnow. JonSnow, amazingly enough, losing out so much on his economy, but still gonna be able to pull this out. It looks like as he's now taking out this third expansion. Once the third expansion goes down, the fourth expansion could be vulnerable, but I wouldn't be too surprised to see JonSnow just try and push into the natural expansion. In a sense, he still is on a little bit of a clock, and he's gonna make use of the time that he has given to him. Gonna take out that third expansion as well as that macro hatcher. The roach is coming in, but it looks like the barcode Zerg player gonna be tapping out. And JonSnow with a very back and forth macro game coming out on top in the ZVZ. So well done by JonSnow. We're gonna get some actual analysis and thoughts from JonSnow, because I'm sure I said a million things wrong in that game. So we're gonna get some real analysis and real thought, and yeah, hear what he has to say. So don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. Hello, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is FearDragon, and I'm joined here once again by Jared, JonSnow, George. How you doing, man?
Still doing good.
Well, we just watched the ZVZ that you actually sent in, and it was pretty interesting, man. Let's talk a little bit about it. So why don't we go ahead and jump into the replay? You can go ahead and hit play. And
right.
Tell us, first of all, let's just get started. Do you know who this player was?
No, just some random Korean GM, so... He wasn't too high, so it probably wasn't anybody.
Oh, so
really
this is on Korea.
Yeah, this was just my Korean account.
I see. Well, that explains why you hit so many. Why you sent in literally every game of barcode.
Yeah.
All right.
Luckily, I didn't make my account a barcode, or else it got really confusing, especially in ZVZ.
Oh god, yeah, I would have just outright rejected. I would have like gotten those replays, started to cast them, and be like, nope. But yeah, like, so tell us, what exactly was going through your head in this game?
This game, I kind of got behind the early game due to the openers. I didn't do too much damage. So I was kind of relying on my army movements and just my engages in general to bring me back into it. But I definitely played really safe in the early game just to ensure that I didn't die. And then I kind of just went into the late game on 4 bases. That felt pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, this is something that I always ask Zerg players about, and usually I always get the same response, but I figured I'd ask anyways. Do you feel like there's a big difference between, like, the spawning pool first opening versus hatch first? Because your opponent actually went for, like, a hatch first gas and then pool. Was that, like, a little bit greedy on their side, or...?
Yeah, it's probably the greediest build you can do in ZVZ right now, because you die to, like, 10 pool Banes and some early pool timings, but it's not too big of a difference. Like, you'll see that our supplies even out eventually. But it definitely gives you a little bit more comfortable opening. You get your third base faster. That's more of the gas versus no gas approach, I think.
Yeah. Let's slow down over here, because you do have some Zergling harassment that goes down over here as I start getting like 2 frames per second. But yeah, like you have this Zergling harassment going down over here. You kind of end up losing a lot of Zerglings. I think you end up losing like 39 Zerglings total in this game so far. And you mentioned like a couple of drones, like 6 or so drones, but are you kind of worried about how many units you've just lost?
Yeah, the Zerglings most of the time is just to keep the opponent back, and you want to do something because when they get the early third up, you want to try to punish them, because sometimes if they get really greedy, they'll just lose the game outright because they have too much of an economy. Yeah. Definitely I didn't do as much as I wanted to, especially, but I did deny some mining, got a few kills. Sometimes you can just kill the third straight out with that Zergling push. But I definitely was a little afraid, but even if you look at I was kind of spending my money poorly, but even if you look at that, we kind of equal out in supply and army. Yeah. So I thought it turned out all right.
Yeah, definitely. And it was also kind of interesting, because I remember when I was watching this, I thought that it was kind of interesting that, like, you ended up getting actually your Roach Warren a lot earlier, but you instead decided to make, like, a ton of those Zerglings. Was there any particular reason for that?
Well, you need the Roach Warren just in case, because he opened up gas, and he could have went for a Baneling push or a Roachling. Right. And the Roaches are just a really good safety net here, because Lings and Queens only are really kind of fragile. So it was really for safety, and then whenever I needed Roaches, I just made a ton, especially after the Ling push, because I was afraid of him countering, which could have been a little scary, but also it could have been good for me, because when you're defending, you have a huge advantage, especially with Spine Crawler, you know?
Yeah. So right now, we actually just saw you, you got a vision, kind of the 4th expansion going down the bottom right-hand corner, and you actually react by going for the gold expansion. Tell us a little bit more about, like, that kind of decision.
The gold expansion is normally
you can feel free to pause,
choice.
By the way, if you want. Since there is, like, you can feel free to pause if you want, because there's, like, an engagement going down, yeah.
Yeah, because there's some engagements going on. Well, the gold base is probably, it's the better choice most of the time. Even though gas is normally the limiting factor, it means that you don't need as many drones to saturate that base, which is the better deal, because normally you want to have the biggest army you can with the best economy. And in ZVZ, like, there's some weird situations where you'll be down 20 drones. Like in this game, we'll see at the end, I'll be down a lot of drones, but since my army is so big, I was able to win the game. And it's a really weird situation that I think other matchups don't really have, because normally you want to have a good amount of workers. So I think the gold base allows you to get the better economy with less workers. And the only downside to the gold base is it's a little bit more out there, so it's easier to get picked off. But I felt like I had a pretty good defensive position, so I was able to take it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you also have this engagement going down. How are you feeling about this one? Because, like, this is one of those things where I swear to God, maybe it's just because I don't play Zerg, but man, I watch ZVZs and I see the Roaches, like, engaging other Roaches, and I'm like, this Roach ball looks bigger than the other one. But they have, like, a slightly worse concave, and they just get decimated. Like, do you ever have, like, that? Do you feel like you have a really good sense of, like, oh, well, this player should win out over here in this engagement kind of thing?
It's always hard to tell, but normally if you're defending, you should have the advantage, especially in these positions where you're at the top of the ramp. Like, I'm coming down, and then you get to punish him, and you get to run up and try to snipe as many Roaches. And I also have these 2 Queens with the army, which also gives you transfusions, which essentially means you're going to have more life on your Roaches, and it makes a huge difference also. But in this game, I think just since they had all the curve spread and the vision, as long as you're able to get at the top of the ramp and have a good concave, you should win, even if you're down in upgrades or army. The concave is just really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it looks like you kind of get the better end of this one, so you can go ahead and resume it if you want.
All right. So here I'm just trying to chase him down and kill as many of those weakened roaches as I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm behind this. Like, you guys are pretty much just producing roaches. How do you feel about like the 60 drone count?
The 60 drone count is essentially what you want. You don't want to go any higher than that, I think, unless you're trying to play like a infester style where you don't need as much roaches. But with this style, I think the 60 to 65 drones is the premium amount, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always, I always think that's a little bit interesting because, and that does tie back into what you were saying about the gold expansion, where you don't need as many drones to saturate that fourth. Just because, you know, 4 bases with 60 drones, that also does seem like a little bit on the lower side, but it makes sense with the gold expansion. Well, you haven't really been able to saturate that up just yet. Is that more just like because you're kind of you're focusing your attention over on that attack, or you didn't really want to spare the larva just yet?
Yeah, it was. It's pretty much all those reasons. You know, he hasn't saturated his either yet because we're still attacking and we don't want to spend money on drones. And also, one of the biggest things is you just like my main base isn't mined out yet, so I can't transfer those. Or I could, but it's not really worth it yet. Yeah. The biggest thing is just you want to have efficiency in your mining. So if I made like 20 drones now to saturate my 4th base, then my main base mines out, and then all those drones are doing nothing.
I see.
So I think it's fine to keep it unsaturated for now.
Yeah. Well, right now we see actually the burrowed roach harassment that goes on from your opponent. What the heck is going through your head over here? Like when you start seeing all your drones dying, but the army is also there, so you have to like sit here and defend.
This is it's really hard to deal with. You see here, I just transfer drones to my gold base because it's hard because you have to deny all this harassment at the same time, and while also making sure that their main army doesn't kill anything. So I'm trying to move around. It's always a little bit chaotic, but just making overseers and everything. Then here I get a really good engagement with my banelings, which was really the best part of the game.
Yeah. And banelings in ZVZ, it's something that you occasionally do see, but sometimes they just work out amazingly well. Sometimes it's actually just the silliest thing in the world to see. You feel like, oh my god, am I watching a Gold Leaguer or something? Like, what is the big difference? Or how do you make these work?
Well, when you're facing mass Roach Bane is better than that because you'll see here you get to split up the army and you get to do a ton of splash damage. So if you're facing infestors, they're a lot worse, but as you see here, I weaken up this whole army, then I get a better position. So the banelings are really good, I think, in CBZ right now because mass Roach or Roach Hydra is the standard at the moment.
Yeah, so one thing that, like, obviously you're in a bit of an all-in-ish position right now, right? Because the roaches are still back at home, like, doing harassment, even doing some damage to your gold expansion. You're really not even mining right now. So you're kind of in this all-in-ish, like, you can't really depend on a lot of reinforcements coming in, right? So what is kind of going through your head and how you have to handle this situation?
So if you look right now, I'm down in workers, but if you look at my army value, I'm way up just because of how this game was going. Then also you have to account for all the roaches that he has in my bases. And I was still able to mine since I was just transferring the drones from other bases to the bases that weren't attacked, which was a little bit of an issue by him because he didn't fully commit to the counterattack. He kind of just half commit. So I was still able to mine a little bit, which is all you really need at this stage of ZVZ because roaches are really cheap. You don't need a huge economy.
Yeah.
And with that good engage, I was just able to stick my army right in the middle of all his rally points, and then from there, I was able to close out the game.
Oh, that's actually a really good point. Just like getting in between his rally points to make sure that he can't really regroup up with his army. And you do eventually force out the GG, so really well played over there, man. And very interesting to see kind of like the win when you are getting, like, you're losing a ton of your workers and all that other stuff. You're losing a lot of your economy, but as you were saying, like, you still end up winning. And it's weird because I know you said, like, oh, you know, I ended the game with 20 drones up. You actually end the game with the exact same number of drones. But of course, like, you were killing off drones with, like, this big army push out. He was killing off drones with harassment. So, different situation. Did you have any kind of final thoughts about the game?
It's a pretty weird game, but this is how a lot of ZVZs actually end up nowadays, because one player will go for Burrow Roach and the other player won't, and they'll just do this kind of YOLO push through the middle and try the end of the game. It's actually how my teammate Guitar Cheese, he took out Suppy. Suppy was doing this really good Roach Burrow play, then Guitar Cheese just kind of attacked to the middle of the map, which is part of the reason I don't like doing the Roach Burrow, because it feels like I don't know, you're trying to outplay your opponent so much, but then you end up losing anyway just to some big attack. So
Yeah, makes sense. Well, looking forward to seeing how the rest of your matchups go. We're going to go ahead and jump into the next interview segment. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back, guys. I'm back here with JonSnow, aka Jared George, who, is a man of many first names. Jared, JonSnow. You have George. Even your last name is a first name. What's up with that, man?
I don't know, man. Just the way I was born.
But alright, man. You're a 17-year-old. You're in high school. You're a senior. You were actually, the last time you were on the show, you were a junior. So, I mean, how's school been going? You said before, and you've said it also in your application video, that last time you had the opportunity to break out, but school, work, all these other kind of things that kind of got in the way. What's going on in your life now? Have things changed? Are you preparing for college apps? Like, what's...
Yeah, definitely the next few months will be a little bit more busier than the rest of the year because I'll be, preparing for the college apps and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have the same job anymore. I actually don't have the job. I'm just going to relax for this little part and hopefully maybe my StarCraft skills will improve. And I've just been, I do cross country for the fall. And that'll be pretty much it, just StarCraft and school and cross country for a little bit.
Before last year, you kind of said you were hinting at the idea that you were interested in computer science. Are you still interested in that kind of field of study?
Yeah, definitely the technological field is interesting. I haven't decided exactly what major I want yet, but I think definitely maybe engineering. Still not sure. A lot of choices I gotta make soon.
All right, so are you planning to play 14 hours a day? How much time are you actually able to devote then to practicing?
In the summer, I was playing a bit more than I would in the school year. I wouldn't say more than 5 or 6 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
I still had some other stuff to do, and I don't know. My wrists also kind of bother me if I play a ton, which I think probably isn't a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
So I try not to play more than 20, 25 games a day.
Do you have a very set schedule for doing this kind of stuff?
I wouldn't say it's really scheduled. Sometimes I'll custom games if people are on and they want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Other times I'll just be laddering on different servers. And just whenever I get the chance, I'll be playing StarCraft whenever I have nothing else to do. I'm actually not that big of a gamer outside of StarCraft. It's the only really game I ever play.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much I started in Wings of Liberty as just for fun. And ever since then, I've just been playing a little bit more over the time. And eventually, when Heart of the Swarm came out, I think I got really good. At least relatively good,
So, I mean, what's so interesting to you about StarCraft specifically?
You see how hard work pays off. And that when someone plays a ton and practices really well, you can definitely see the difference between someone who plays a lot and practices and someone who doesn't. I think it's just really cool to be able to compete and have that competitive outlet.
Do you feel like your hard work has been paying off?
I think sometimes yes and sometimes no.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that before this WCS qualifiers, I was working really hard, and then when I didn't qualify, I definitely shook me a bit, and probably my motivation slumped a little bit. But then after a while, it got back up there, and I've been working hard again.
But hey, man, let's talk a little bit about your Zerg versus Terran, your ZVT matchup, because I'm really interested to hear about the progress you've made in this matchup. Because last year, I'm not gonna lie, you were winning your ZVTs, but they were 85% Roach bailing on. I remember watching your WCS Challenger League matches in 2013 in the final season. And people were like, oh man, this JonSnow guy, he's gotten into Challenger League. I wonder what he's going to do. He made it through the qualifier before there was any kind of region locking. And I was like, well, if what he said in his interview was correct, he's just going to Roach bailing on. And then you did it every game. And you were still doing really well.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was last year. That was 2013. All right, you've had a good bit of time. You said you've been working on your macro and everything. Where's your ZVT at now?
Now I've definitely have a much more variety in playstyle, not just the Roach Bane all-in, which was my favorite build for a while. It just was so strong, and all these Terrans were so greedy.
Do you still make?
I have a few different styles now. There's the standard 4-base Mutiling Baneling, where you're just playing a brutal game against Biomine. Also, I've been experimenting with the Roach Hydra play off 3 bases, which some people will still say it's kind of all-in-ish, but you can definitely play a macro game off it, and it's definitely really nice. I think I've kind of become more of a macro ZVT player. The issue with like the Roach Bane was I was always, I think, fighting Terrans who I thought were better than me, so I always had to take that risk, and it just kept working.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for me to stop Roach Bane all in my ZVTs for a while.
Well, hey man, you also said in your ZVZs that kind of your greater difficulty is sort of picking out what build orders you're going to be going for ahead of the game, ahead of time. But you can react pretty well when you actually get into the actual game and you start getting information of what your opponent's doing. So do you feel that same way in ZVT, or is the kind of the fact that you have a little bit more time to iron out where you're going to be going in the actual game and play a little bit more reactively? Has it worked out a little bit better in ZVT for you in that sense?
It's a little bit different in ZVT. I don't feel as confident in like the mid-late game versus good players. I think the really good Terrans, just they control their bio armies so well that it's a little bit different. But I definitely feel like you don't have to go into a ZVT game really knowing what you need to do. You can just go in, hatch first, and react from then. And based on what you scout, the same thing in ZVP. I think ZVZ is the one where you have to really decide what you want to do before you see a lot of stuff.
What is, again, your big one strength and weakness in the matchup?
My strength in ZVT definitely would probably be the variety of builds. So I think there's a ton of builds out there for ZVT that you can do, like some all-in, some macro play, and there's just a really big variety right now. I think my weakness would definitely be that my control isn't the best, especially with like when you're doing a bunch of different styles, you don't really... Like if you're doing Roach Hydra, then you go back to Mutiling Bane. It's kind of hard to still control that because the Roach Hydra control is way easier and you get kind of lazy. And then you go back to Mutiling Bane, and then it's just a lot harder. You need a lot more APM to creep spread and micro your mutas and the Banes and pick up Little Mines. So just when you're mixing it up, it's hard to stay really strong in all parts of the matchup. I think there's a lot of really good Terrans that I feel if they know what you're going to do exactly, they can exploit it and then just either play really greedily and really solidly or do it all in. And I think that's what a lot of Zergs get caught in. And I don't think I have like the time to play like Sulky or Sue with the amazing creep spread and the amazing Mutabane control. So I still need to try to get an advantage outside of the normal macro play, but it's just a way that's a little bit safer.
Well, let's go ahead and see exactly those kind of different builds that you've been talking about as we go ahead and jump into the ZVT. We'll be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere.
It's game time! Zerg versus Terran.
Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players that you need to know about. Today on the show, we're going to be watching the ZVT here on the map Foxtrot Labs. Let's go ahead and jump in and introduce the players as we spawn up here in the top left-hand corner of the map. On top of the red Terran player, he is going to be a barcode, and here we go, introducing the barcode Terran player. Woo! For not knowing identities. And his opponent spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Zerg player representing Solaris Gaming. It is Solaris Gaming's JonSnow, the highlight player of the week. Or should I say highlight player of the day, because highlight player of the week is an old phrase we used to use with Breaking Out when we had an entire week dedicated to each player. Now it's basically just a day dedicated to each player, but I mean, this barcode Terran player, look at this. Look at that APM. Oh my god, such high APM. Oh god, JonSnow with the 0 APM right now. This is why we're highlighting him, ladies and gentlemen, because look at how efficient he is with that APM. No spam coming out of either of these players. Absolutely beautiful. But in all seriousness, ZVT, a very, very fun matchup. And we're not seeing anything too crazy right now. No early pools. No super duper fast like CC first or anything. We actually just have a gas geyser coming out right after the barracks, so it's probably going to be some sort of nice old Reaper expand coming out of the Terran player. This is, I would actually, again, I've said this so many times in the past, I would be more surprised to see something that wasn't a Reaper expand than I am to actually see a Reaper expand these days. It's unbelievably common. And JonSnow, I'm sure he's going to be anticipating that. He's going to be going for that natural expansion. And Of course, spawning pool immediately afterwards. This is one of those things that, you know, Zerg players, they felt comfortable doing those hatch firsts for a very, very long time now. Occasionally you do see things like an earlier pool just to get out those earlier queens. You can get up an earlier gas geyser as well to try and get up a faster speed to deal with the Hellion harassment and the Reaper harassment. But for the most part, I think that I really do like the whole go for the hatch first, go for the spawning pool. You hold off from the Reaper harassment for just like, you know, whatever, 45 seconds to a minute, and then your queens pop out, and boom, you are solid. You are golden. You don't really have to worry too much about anything that those Reapers are going to be trying to do. And that first Reaper is now on its way out, and you know, Foxtrot Labs, it is a kind of interesting map in terms of the layout, but there isn't really a lot of space for the Reaper to hop up into that main base. You can see over here that there is this small little ledge over there that you can kind of hop around in to the main base from, but besides that, it's pretty much just through the natural expansion. And if you imagine the Queen's going to be popping out over here, it's basically going to be able to cover a large portion of this ramp. It's going to be a small little area maybe over here that the Queen won't really be able to cover, so the Reaper has to be careful when he goes into the main base. Make sure he doesn't take too much damage. The first side of Zerglings are going to be popping out, and I'm not anticipating JonSnow to be losing too many of these Zerglings. In all honesty, he should be taking a little bit of damage on some and then pulling them back exactly as we see over there. So again, everything going pretty much as expected. Now let's talk a little bit about JonSnow. JonSnow, he's been on Breaking Out before. Back then, his ZVT was actually in a very different state than it is now. Back then, he actually was a little bit infamous for going for Roach Baneling all-ins. But these days, honestly, he said that he feels much more comfortable in actually playing out a little bit more of a solid macro game. Now, oh my god, do we have some sort of double extractor trick going down from JonSnow? He was a 36 of 34. I guess he must have maybe lost an Overlord then, but I mean, he does have his first two Overlords sitting on the other side of the map, and meanwhile, he's still just kind of microing his heart out against these Reapers. He has a decent number of Zerglings out, 8 Zerglings out, you know, just 2 more than I generally end up seeing, but he's going to have to make those Zerglings anyways pretty soon for the Hellions that are going to be popping out very soon. The Reapers, again, good harassment coming down from the Terran players, some pretty good control, keeping both of those alive. You do want to keep those guys alive. There's no reason to really lose them this early on, but Zergling speed is going to be finishing up, and that means that those Reapers have to get the heck out of there, because once that Zergling speed finishes up, oh man, these 10 Zerglings become death threats for those Reapers. There's no way that they can get really back home unless you just get incredibly lucky. Now, with the Hellions though popping out, that means that these Reapers have a couple of extra buddies. It's going to be a little bit easier using that buddy system to survive against these Zerglings, and these Zerglings are now going to be the ones on the retreat once again. One of my favorite things about ZVT is how back and forth it is between the units. First, the Reapers control the map, and then the Zerglings get up speed, and then they control the map, and then the Reapers get their Hellion buddies, and now once again they control the map. It just kind of goes back and forth, but ooh, JonSnow going for the gold right now. Oh god, did the Terran player see? He did actually see it with those Hellions, with those Reapers, and he could go down to pressure that. But for now, he just wants to deny a little bit of that creep spread, wants to play it out a little bit safe, doesn't want to be committing too far down, although I think this is a pretty easy, well, yeah, this is a pretty easy place to commit to, because there's always this down path and up the ramp that you can always escape to, so I don't feel like it's too much of an overcommitment. I feel like these units, if they're going to be chilling anywhere, they should be chilling over by this hatchery and just doing some nice little harassment on it. Sometimes you can actually get some good damage done, and you can actually get a cancel off on it. But behind this, we have more barracks being added on. Third CC already finished up. These units are just here to try and put on some pressure. Double evolution chamber plus the queen wall up going around for JonSnow. This is actually kind of interesting. I feel like this queen wall and not actually a complete wall up unless he's very careful with his positioning. The hatchery finally taking a little bit of damage, and this is what I mean. He's only been attacking it for a good 15 or 20 seconds, and he's already gotten it down to half health. The queen's out, coming out. The roaches are going to be popping very soon, but oh man, he has to throw down some transfuses just to try and get some energy or some health back onto that hatchery. That is not exactly the most ideal situation. This is one of the risks that you take when taking this gold expansion. It's a very vulnerable gold expansion, but with the roaches out, I feel like he should have a much easier time defending that gold expansion. The question is, does he have enough roaches to defend both his gold and prevent the Hellion run by over into the natural expansion? Looks like yes, because he's just going to use 2 of these queens over here at this gold expansion and starting to get that creep spread up as well as defend against those Hellions. And he's going to use his roaches just to make sure that there's no Hellion run by. And honestly, I like that decision. The Hellion run by is really the scarier of the 2 options. Yeah, you could take a little bit of light damage and pressure. Ooh, hold that thought. And, alright, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like the alarm bells are going off because I think that the timing push from our Terran player is going to be arriving soon. He just needs to finish up a couple of those reactors, finish off a couple of those add-ons, and he's going to be pumping out massive numbers of units because he has this gold expansion now. He's going to have a huge influx of economy. Now, JonSnow going to have the same thing, but, you know, I kind of always liked gold expansions a little bit more on Terran players versus Zerg players in these situations because you think about it, they're both on these 3 bases. But JonSnow, he's not going to be able to really make as much use of this gold expansion just because the gold expansions, they expire very quickly. And look at this Hellion harassment also going to be able to deny mining from JonSnow for a little bit. And once again, I want to remind you that JonSnow doesn't have that 4th expansion. There's I wouldn't say unspoken rule, but there's a rule that kind of says, oh yeah, as a Zerg player, you want to have 4, or you know, want to have 1 more base than your Terran opponent, but oh my god, JonSnow actually using these roaches to kind of say, you know what, I don't actually need that extra base right now. I have an unbelievably large number of roaches, and I'm going to be able to put on some nice pressure over here. Now, does he actually, he doesn't actually know about that gold expansion, which is kind of part of the reason why he's trying to break down this big wall, and why he's trying to put on that pressure. But the roach does move down to the gold expansion. He does see that it's over there. Now the SCVs are being pulled over here. The SCV count dwindling quite heavily. The Marines, I mean, they're trying to do some nice damage over here, but the roaches do have that extra armor upgrade. It does make it very difficult, or I should say just the extra armor, no upgrade involved. He just has a bit of extra tankability with these roaches versus those Marines that just it reduces so much damage over here. And you can see that the Marines are trying to power through these roaches, but the roaches, they're in an overwhelming number. Even if he doesn't actually manage to kill off all these Marines, he's going to end up losing all of his, or most of his roaches over here. He's stopped mining entirely at that gold expansion. He's killed off so many SCVs, 26 SCVs down versus 52 drones, and once again, the alarm bells are going off, ladies and gentlemen. JonSnow knows that he's in a good position, and the Terran player has to do something incredibly drastic if he wants to be able to come back into this game right now. It is looking so dire, so grim right now for him. So what does he do at this point? Well, he does still have a decently sized force, and JonSnow, he's powering up as many of those roaches as possible. Is it going to be enough, though? I'm not entirely sure. The Widow Mine's getting some pretty decent hits off, but honestly, oh god, this Marine force is just too small right now. The roach count is going to be able to be replenished, and JonSnow, he's starting to mine slowly but surely off of that gold expansion. He doesn't really have a whole lot of mineral mining going down over there, but he does have that gas, and he's just powering out as many roaches as possible. 2-2 going to be on the way for JonSnow, but isn't even going to finish. He's going to be going after this Marine force one last time, potentially Stim making a huge impact, though, in that engagement, and really allowing the Terran player to survive a little bit longer. This is actually starting to get a little bit scary for JonSnow, and he's going to have to be so careful with where he engages over here. He wants to make sure that he engages with all of his roaches, but +2 weapons, going to be finishing up in a good 20 seconds. It may still not actually come down to that, but actually the Marines walking onto creep have to be so careful against those roaches. He doesn't want to let those roaches get entirely too much of taunt on top of the Marines and stop the retreat, because, you know, if the roaches are immediately just given that a death hug on top of the Marines, even with Stim, it becomes very hard to retreat out of there. Yeah, the Marines are actually, you know, put into a really nice position, especially alongside those Widow Mines. Those Widow Mines going to be able to get into a very nice position, making it very difficult for any kind of Zergling support to come by. But once again, JonSnow really doesn't have that Zergling support. That's not really what he's going for. He's going for that pure roach army. Has a couple of queens in the mix as well, and oh, those roaches actually coming in from the backside as well. Now trapping all of the Marines, trapping the Marauders in, and he actually just makes it almost impossible for the Terran player to win in this engagement. Even with great micro, there's not really a whole lot more that you can do. There's a lot of medevacs around because there's honestly not a whole lot of anti-air around for JonSnow, but it looks like it's not even going to matter at this point. The Terran player has been able to replenish a couple of those SCVs, but only still sitting 36 SCVs to 50 drones. He's been able to kill off a couple of those drones. But JonSnow can now deny mining once again all over that gold expansion, just putting that Terran player back down a couple more SCVs before he goes in for the big death push once again, getting up a Hydralisk stand behind this as well. And you can really see over here that JonSnow, he's staying true to his kind of aggressive roots, but in this game, he's definitely shown that he's kind of just out macroing his opponent. He's gotten up way more roaches, and after taking that earlier lead on the economy, he's been able to continue that pressure, continuously put this on, and stop his Terran opponent from really being able to do a whole lot, really being able to get back into the game. Now, the Terran player still actually has a couple of these Widowmines over here, gonna finally get cleaned up by some of these Roaches and the Overseers. Gonna take a couple of hits off, though, a little bit annoying, but you know, expansion, third expansion does get forced to lift off. And once again, the Terran player is really not mining a whole lot. And this is going to be very, very problematic because, you know, this natural expansion, it's all well and good, but look at this. This is paltry mining over here. It's mostly just mules. And, oh, it looks like the entire Terran Bioforce has to stem up and start running away from some of these Roaches because the Roaches, once again, with the 2-2 upgrades, pushing Fawn forward over the 1-1 Bioforces. But not only that, once again, just JonSnow's macro is just kind of beating out his opponent at this point. It's just a matter of numbers. When you have 3 bases worth of units and you're mining off of those 3 bases and your opponent's really only mining off of 2, or should I say kind of 1.5 maybe, you kind of just have a bigger force and you can go for those supply inefficient units that just still work out because you have so damn many of them. But now the Hydros are starting to get into the mix, and this could be the kiss of death. This could be the killing blow over here. JonSnow, honestly, he still has not ever gotten up a 4th expansion, which is kind of interesting. I feel like you could have maybe taken out these rocks, grabbed this 4th expansion, and been in a decent position to still have enough units to defend. But, you know, regardless, he is going to just continue to get out some of those Hydros. And now with the Hydros in the mix, that means that those medevacs that have been surviving for such a long period of time, the things that have maybe even been just keeping the Terran player in this game for as long as he has been, they're going to be very, very vulnerable to the Hydros anti-air DPS that's going to be coming out. And, you know, the Hydros also have some great DPS versus the Bioforces, those Marines, the Marauders. They just get decimated almost instantly to that Hydros DPS, especially once again considering the fact that JonSnow does have that 2-2 upgrade advantage over his opponent's 1-1. Widowmines position themselves, getting ready for that big engagement as the Bioforce just kind of teasing at it. He's just trying to find that right engaging. He doesn't want to engage too early. Stim does go out on the entire army over here, and he's actually doing a good job kiting back JonSnow, but oh man, his Marines not exactly in the best concave over here. JonSnow getting the better end of the concave. The Hydro's also doing an absurd amount of DPS to those Marines, to those Marauders. The Roach is doing a great job tanking for the Hydros, and it looks like finally, once and for all, the entire Terran Bioforce is going to get completely knocked out over here, and the Medevac's going to be soon to be the only thing remaining. He tries to lift off over here, but oh god, the only Medevac that had any units in it. Besides, I suppose this one that had a single Marine in it does get taken out. And JonSnow, he's taken the unbelievably high advantage time and time again in this game. And he's going to be able to once again press on to that 3rd expansion and say, no, your gold expansion is going to remain relatively untouched for this entire game. I know you've been trying to mine from it for like 10 minutes now, but I'm just not gonna let you, because you know what? I don't need anything more than 3 bases. I don't need you to have anything more than 2 bases, and it's time for me to end this game. He's going to be pushing forward, doing some light little pressure over this gold expansion, but this time he has the 2 Hydros added in. It doesn't matter if you lift off this time. The Hydro's going to eventually be able to DPS us down. There's no running away unless he decides to drop down some mules or something onto the high ground. Well, actually, he's going to be able to, amazingly enough, get that over and away to safety, but it's still going to be burning down, and he still has to deal with this enormous Roach Hydro force that's sitting over in his natural expansion, and he's going to be pushing in. GG finally gets called from the Terran player. He stuck it out till the end, but in the end, JonSnow is going to come out victorious as he launches his assault on to the north and takes the game. So congratulations to JonSnow on that ZVT victory. We're going to be jumping into the analysis with JonSnow, so don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We will be right back. Hello everyone, my name is Fear Dragon, and I'm joined once again by Out JonSnow, and we're going to be jumping into the Zerg versus Terran analysis segment. Jared, let's kick it off. Let's go ahead and play this game, and what the heck was going on in this game, man?
This was a really weird game. It was Roach Hydra versus Bio, and he takes the gold base, and it just got really, really close, and it was a really weird game in general. Especially on Foxtrot, which is just a really weird map also,
yeah.
So...
Can we talk about what your thoughts are on these gold bases that are literally... They literally have gold minerals next to an attack path. You can actually sit behind in a safe location and kill off your opponent's workers.
It is a really weird map, especially these positions. Other positions are actually, I like them more. They're more standard, but these ones are, get some weird games on this map.
Alright, well, we do actually end up having, you know, a Reaper expanded and everything coming out. Do you actually make, I'm just curious, like, is 8 Zerglings more, or sorry, 10 Zerglings? 8 Zerglings? I'm trying to remember how many Zerglings you made.
I think I made 8.
Zerglings. Yeah, how do you kind of, like, always decide how many Zerglings you're gonna make? It's, like, a really small thing, but sometimes you see, like, Zerg players, they say, like, oh, well, let me just get up extra queens earlier on, or go with crit spread, or I don't think I've seen spine crawlers come out against like a couple of reasons. That would be an overreaction, but how do you decide how many?
8's more than normal. Normally 6 is enough to deal with a Reaper, but no, what I wanted to do was send 2 Zerglings from my natural to his natural and kind of kill the SCV building the command center. Then I'd have 6 at home to defend, but he ended up scattering those lings, so I just used them all to defend. I
see. Gotcha. Well, you end up sending in your Overlord and kind of getting a scout off and see like the 3rd CC and everything. But those Reapers and the Hellions are actually doing a lot of damage to your 3rd. Are you kind of worried about? Like, this is always something that's always kind of weirded me out. Is like how low this 3rd sometimes gets just to the Reapers and Hellions. Like, is that always like a concern for you?
Sometimes it is, because like really good players never lose their 3rd base, so you don't want to be like that scrub that loses it. But I didn't want to show my roaches that early, so I was just trying to hold off with these queens for them.
I see. Oh, are you keeping your roaches like hidden inside of your? Okay, you have them outside by the natural.
Yeah, they're not. They're just here to. They're not really hidden, but if he doesn't see him for a while, it's still good.
Right.
I think he might know now, but since I opened with speed, like roach isn't that common off this opener, so.
I see. Here's where the annoying harassment comes in, on that gold expansion. I'm just gonna say, like, because people have already seen the game, they already know what happens. You go for this big push out and everything. This is kind of a weird game, but you never decide to, like, even when you start to do a lot of damage over here, like you take out this wall and you deny mining at the gold expansion, kill off a ton of SCVs, you never decide to take a 4th. Why is that?
With Roach Hydra, it really is. It doesn't scale well into the late game, so you kind of want to keep it on a low economy game, unless you want to go into Hive and get Brood Lords and stuff. But I don't know. I never had the time to take a 4th because I felt like I could kill him, or I felt like I needed to defend.
I see.
So it really just never came about.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I guess like you kind of almost felt like you could probably kill him right here, but then there's also a concern about defending now after his stim finishes up and he starts pushing across the map. So yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
And since I killed his engineering base, I really wanted to hit that 2-2 timing. So I would have 2-2 versus 1-1, but yeah, this is very annoying. His push on my gold base.
Yeah, it's definitely been very annoying in the sense that you haven't really been able to mine from there, and for the most part, at least, like much lately. So do you feel like right now it's kind of like a 2-base economy versus a 2-base economy game? Despite the fact that he has like far fewer SCVs, do you feel like it's kind of an evenish game then?
Yeah, right now I felt it was pretty even, especially with him having the gold base. Although after cleaning this up, I felt really good.
Yeah.
But still, it was a crazy back and forth.
Well, you kind of go for your de facto, like, oh, well, I just killed off his army. Time to go deny the mining of the gold expansion one more time. These roaches, man, like, they're doing well. Like, you're able to like win some of those defensive engagements, but you always end up kind of like you always get into the situation where like he ends up stimming, and eventually you just end up losing a lot of those roaches and having to retreat. Or is that like a worrisome for you, or are you kind of doing that intentionally, like just trying to get out whichever trades you can while you're trying to establish your own gold?
Yeah, the issue with roaches is they're just not as good as bio, especially when they're equal on upgrades. So you want to really get the trades you can. And Hydras are really what you want to kill the units with, because with the medevac healing power, roaches are really, they don't do as much DPS as the Marines.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. So you start to get finally you can start to get some of those Hydras out, especially considering his medevac count is starting to get a little bit out of hand, right? Yeah,
that's the only scary thing is when they get so many medevacs that like your Roach Hydra just can't kill anything. Well, I'm so lucky he's on 1-1 this whole game though. If he got his upgrades up, it would have been, I think, a lot different.
Yeah, killing off those engineering bases really paid off, man. But now you finally have those Hydros, you can actually start to kill off some of those medevacs. But you're playing relatively defensive? There's something that's kind of interesting to me is that you were saying like, oh, Roach Hydra doesn't scale as well as the late game, but you kind of just seem like you really just want to get the best engagement angle, and you were okay with playing patient there.
Yeah, because I knew that he was pretty all in because he didn't have as many SCVs. So as long as I could just keep taking engagements on creep and trading, I thought I would be all right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Once again, denying the mining over the third expansion, reducing him down to 25 SCVs has just become like a norm at this point.
Yeah, I never knew how low he was until the end of the game when I checked the unit stat, and I was like, wow, he had no workers.
Yeah, and from here on, like, you're basically able to just kind of push on, power through, and take out the army finally, so well done. Did you have any other kind of final thoughts about this game?
No, you got to see the power of Roach Hydra and also the weaknesses. It's a cool style, but definitely is hard to make work sometimes.
And do you have any kind of like tips maybe for Zerg players that are more used to that Mutiling, Baneling style and everything, and they're trying out the Roach Hydra style? Because I've seen some players who do try it, and they have a little bit more trouble with making it successful.
It just has a different feel than Mutiling Bane. You have to hit your timings really, really crisply, like your 1-1 timing and your 2-2 timing. That's where you're going to do a lot of your work with this style. If you don't really do damage with the style, it might not work. Like we saw Jaedong try to make this work, but he played like a really, really macro style, where he kind of like took a fourth and he was like pretending that his units were better than Bio. And then Supernova was in Red Bull. Supernova just kind of rolled over him with his like 3-3 Bio. It's a pretty weird game.
Yeah, and how do you kind of like feel the best transition is if you can't really win in these super early, or like I shouldn't say super early game because it's not like a big like 1-1 Roach timing all in, right?
Yeah.
But how do you feel like you get to transition out in the late game if this, for example, did carry on in a relatively evenish fashion?
I think the best transition is either going to Vipers, where you just don't let the Terran attack you. If they're going like heavy tank, maybe Vipers would be great. Or into Broodlord and Fester with the Roach Hydra support, which is also really good, because Broodlords are really good at keeping the units back and nullify tanks also. Because normally Terrans would go tank for this style. He ends up going with Bio Mine, so maybe Infestors would have been good for him. There's a lot of different transitions you can do.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the next matchup. We're going to go ahead and jump to the next interview segment. So don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Feardragon, and I'm once again joined here by Out JonSnow. George, man of many first names, but only one team. And JonSnow, how are you feeling about your new team? I say new team, it's been like a couple of months now, I think. Last time we spoke, on the show at least, you were on Core Gaming, so how's Solaris gaming working out, man?
Solaris gaming is really great. I like the teammates. It's a new, fresh team on the NA scene. I think it's got a lot of potential.
I mean, how much do you actually hate your teammates, though? Let's be honest here, because Guitar Cheese denied you that challenger spot. You mentioned that earlier.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of your teammates now, man. I mean, do you hate him like at a level 8 level or a level 10 level?
No, I like Guitar Cheese. He's a really cool guy. I actually feel bad because I've cheesed him out of a lot of qualifiers. Actually, in the WCS qualifier this time, I cheesed him out of one of those before he qualified in the second one.
Oh man,
he was a little mad, but we're still friends. We're still good. Says he likes my personality, but he dislikes my playstyle, which I think it's a funny way to put it.
So, what exactly is it about Solaris Gaming that's kind of keeping you on the team? Obviously, you've only been on there for a couple of months, but are you there for like practice partners? Are you getting income from the actual team? Like, what is it about Solaris that you like?
Pretty much everything you said. They pay me a salary, and then the team has a lot of good players on it, which are good for practice. We have team practices every once in a while, and we play, and there's a good variety. And we're getting new players all the time. Like we just signed Virium, I think.
Yeah.
He's a really good Protoss player, so we get another practice partner. It just feels really good to be on like a live team, you know. Sometimes you're on a team and it feels pretty stale. It feels good to be on Solaris where there's like a team that you can kind of rely on. And we've been doing well in some team leagues, and I think that's gonna be fun too. Because I was like normally we have at least one practice session a week where we do it all together. I think we had it twice a week for a while too. It's just there was a small period where everyone was busy, but now with Virion back in the team, we're probably going to start up those practice sessions again. For ZVZ, I play with Silky and Guitar Cheese a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely good because they're actually pretty standard players who are just really solid, which is nice to play against. Because sometimes if you do a practice partner, the issue is that they're just really weird and you're not really playing against a Terran or Zerg, you're playing against them specifically.
For example, playing against Ruff or Cats or somebody is like, well, I know how to play against you.
Then as far as Protoss goes, Protoss players are kind of busy, so I played with Padre, who was like the team captain coach guy. He's actually still pretty good, and it's really good just to bounce ideas off him. And for Terran, Vinsky was pretty busy, so I haven't been playing with him. But I actually played with some other players in customs sometimes. We're trying to get a good Terran on Solaris, but there just doesn't seem to be any on NA.
But do you have any rivals? Any rivalries that have developed with any players?
Desero, actually, he just beats me in everything I play him in.
Yeah, I've noticed.
I don't know what's up. It's just like every time I play him, I lose, and I just don't know why. He's really good though, but he's definitely the one, like, on paper, he's like just my rival. He just beats me every time I play him.
Mm-hmm.
I think in Solaris, Guitar Cheese is probably my rival. So he's just like the guy who I'm kind of looking at, and I want to surpass him as like the best player on Solaris.
Mm-hmm.
So he's also a rival. I like most people. I don't really have any grudges in the NA scene. I know some people don't like me because the Roach Banes. But I've been
bitter memories.
So I think I'm still pretty good terms with most people on NA.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have any unfriendly rivalries.
What do you think has been your biggest result so far?
It'd probably be qualifying for Challenger last year. Like that was the biggest thing in my career. I think that was just like, especially it wasn't region locked. It was just really hard back then, and I think it was really cool to qualify back then.
Yeah. Besides
that, I think the high school Star League, going to the live finals was really cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to win it, but I think it was like the biggest offline accomplishment I've ever had.
And Zerg versus Protoss, final matchup we have left to talk about. How are you feeling about this matchup? You said you had some trouble with Desero. Is that a ZVP kind of thing? Is just Protoss in general, or is that just a kind of Desero thing?
I think it's mostly just a Desero thing. The way he plays, it's kind of a little bit different than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as ZVP goes, I think right now it's at probably my favorite part it's ever been at, because it used to be a lot of like 2-base all-ins and cheeses and stuff like that, and now it's really become more of like the standard is just to go 3-base macro, which I think is where I'm a lot better suited. I'm not really good in the all-in stages where I'm either too greedy or over-prepare and stuff like that. So I think right now ZVP is pretty nice. Like you can still use mutas, and then there's like these Roach Hydra timings, and there's a lot of variety in the matchup right now, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Man, it's so interesting talking to you about your how you feel in each of the different matchups, because it feels like you're in a totally different place for each matchup. What is it about like I almost want to say like inconsistency across the matchups? Is it just kind of like what?
I think it's been, as far as like ZVP goes, there was never really a good all-in stage for ZVP. So I was always forced to play kind of macro in that matchup. So it's definitely going to be in a different place than my other matchups. Because like the Mothership Core and all that, you just can't really do any all-ins.
Mm-hmm.
There are some nowadays, since first are like Nexus first all the time. But before that, I really had to play macro every game, which has definitely made my playstyle in ZVP a lot different. Protoss 2-base, it's a lot easier to scout now. I think I'm getting better. It's still hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some all-ins where it's just really, really brutal, like the Sentry Immortal or Blink all-ins. But I'm getting a lot better holding them off.
Okay, so you're feeling better about it. You're getting better at scouting it. What do you feel is kind of like your biggest strength and your biggest weakness in ZVP?
The biggest strength would probably be just like tech switches in general. I think that's my biggest strength. Just like going from mutas to ultras and stuff like that. And when you get more into the mid game, so I think when you're doing that pressure on the Protoss, I think that's where they kind of get in this weird spot and you can really abuse them. But my biggest weakness would probably be some mid-game decisions, like with the all-ins. I'll over-drone or I'll just make too many units and I'll make these weird decisions. And there's still a little bit of that in the early game where I'll go like 3-4 pool and this guy will prestidigate me.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes there's just too many risks being happened at the same time.
Man, that's so interesting to me, because again, you were just saying, like, ZVZ, you feel like when you get into the game, that's when you start making, like, the good decisions and everything, kind of reactive decisions. Now you're saying, like, ZVP, that's when you have trouble sometimes, like, you're making maybe not the best decisions. So I just think that it's sort of, like, really cool that you kind of, it feels like you're almost a different player in each matchup.
It definitely feels that way.
Does that sort of influence the way that you look at, like, tournaments and your results and everything? Do you sometimes just kind of feel like saying, like, well, I don't really care about how that tournament went. Like, I just got X matchup too many times, and, you know, whatever. I'm not going to worry about it.
Not necessarily. I think there's definitely like times where I'm really hoping for a certain matchup a lot. Like maybe I'm really strong in a certain matchup at the time. Definitely, if I lose, like, I've lost like a lot of PVZs, especially in the WCS qualifiers, and I don't like discredit it, but I feel like maybe if I got Terrans or Zergs, I'd be able to qualify instead. But I think it just really proves I need to practice like one matchup more to get them all equal.
Well, we'll go ahead and see exactly what's going on in your Zerg versus Protoss, since you did give us a little bit of a hint about that. So don't go anywhere, guys. We will be right back.
It's game time! Zerg versus Protoss.
Hello, this is FearDragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show by North American StarCraft 2 players that you need to know about. Today on the show, we're going to be watching the ZVP, the final actual, just straight up matchup game of the day. Of course, we go over the ZVZ, the ZVT, we've already seen those. Now we're jumping into the ZVP here for the day of JonSnow. Let's go ahead and jump in and introduce the players as we spawn up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, on top of the red Protoss player. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen, we are just seeing so many of these guys today. It is going to be the supposedly Korean Barco this time. At least based on that Korean clan tag. And his opponent. Spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map is going to be the blue Zerg player. You know him, you love him, and he's been showing some great macro games today. It is going to be Solaris Gaming's JonSnow. And ZVP, we already see interesting opening coming out from our Protoss player up here in the top left-hand corner. The cross-spawn position of Deadwing, which does mean there's actually two spawn locations that either of these two players could be spawning in. Protoss player spots the bottom left-hand side, sees immediately, okay, my opponent's in the bottom right. It's the cross-spawn position, so that does give him a little bit more time. Wouldn't be too surprised to maybe see a Nexus first, but no, he's going to be going for the Forge first. And this is what I was saying was kind of interesting, with the fact that he did go for that pylon very, very quickly on the low ground. And, you know, sometimes you see players go for the pylon on the low ground. They say, oh, well, you know, it's cross-spawn position or something. I'll take a little bit of risk. I'll go for the Nexus first and throw down a gateway or a Forge immediately afterwards or something of the sort. But instead, we do have, you know, JonSnow taking that natural expansion nice and early before that probe very critically gets over here and can be super duper annoying. Can't really force out the spawning pool first. And it's going to just come around and see, okay, you have your spawning pool down, you have your hatchery down. Alright, there's not a whole lot more that I can do over here. Except for maybe go for some cannon shenanigans. If he gets a little bit lucky, gets good with the positioning. And oh, we are going to be seeing a little bit of that, at least attempted pylon going down over here. Is JonSnow going to react? He obviously immediately sees this. He's going to be able to pull off one of these drones. The correct response should be to pull off, well, actually one extra drone, I think, but you know, why not be a little bit safe? At least I feel like the rule was always have 3 drones. You can pretty much stop any of those cannons or pylons from going up, but gonna try and go after that probe. Not quite able to get it. Actually, one cannon now gonna be going up. The probe could be vulnerable, but no, he actually manages to escape, juking and jiving everywhere. And JonSnow gonna have a little bit of trouble over here. Only true drones actually working away on this cannon, but this cannon over here in the backside gonna be able to get up almost uncontested. A spine collar gonna have to be made over here. JonSnow definitely gonna be taking some damage over on this hatcher. He may be able to get a cancel off on one of these cannons. No, not quite able to do so, and that does mean that this cannon over here, even the low health one, gonna be able to regenerate some of its shields and gonna have a much easier time. 2 cannons gonna make it very, very difficult for JonSnow to actually do a whole lot, but one of these cannons critically not in range of the hatchery, and that's gonna be a really, really nice win for JonSnow. Behind this, I want to note the Nexus has gone up, as well as the gateway, and even a second, or a defensive cannon, I should say, not a second cannon, it's a third cannon. So JonSnow not going to be able to make a whole lot of damage happen over here with this big push out from the Zerglings. He may actually even just need those Zerglings over here just to try and defend. Oh, the Spinecrawler trying to burrow, but it's actually in range of the Photon Cannon. Going to be taking a little bit of damage over there. The Queen trying to circle some of those hits, but it's in range of the back cannon as well. And he's going to have to just go in with some of these Zerglings. He's going to have to try and get that damage done and try and take out these cannons. The cannon getting some big damage done. JonSnow needs to control that Queen, and yes, send him in over there, try and take minimal losses, but oh man, it was a costly defense, but he does manage to get the defense finally up. But oh man, you can just see where that's left JonSnow. He was sitting 27 drones, or sorry, 17 or 19 now drones to the 28 of the Protoss player, who again is not exactly super far behind in tech. The only thing he's kind of lacking on was that cybernetics core for a little bit, but still the Protoss player's got to be feeling very, very comfortable. JonSnow only finally now throwing up that third expansion and finally now taking out that pylon. So to be entirely frank, JonSnow is just in a very behind situation. Amazingly enough, he did manage to get a run by with some of those Zerglings. Managed to get just sneak 2 Zerglings in. Has to be so careful. Doesn't want to lose these because right now he needs to try and be as annoying as possible. Get some good scouting information off until that cybernetics core finishes up and a mothership core eventually pops out. You want to keep these Zerglings alive so you can be annoying. Maybe pick off a probe here and there. Oh, ends up losing 1 Zergling. But still does have that other Zergling alive. Now, he's not going to be able to do a whole lot of damage. I don't expect him to be able to kill off any probes anymore, considering you have a Zergling that basically is going to die in 2 probe hits. 1 probe hit now, and especially with the Zealot out, he's going to be so careful. But he, oh man, gets taken out. But I was going to say, you know, he can still get a little bit of scouting information off. Sees, okay, my opponent did get up his gas guys and everything, and to be entirely honest, I guess the most that he really saw was where the Chronoboost was at. And looks like most of the Chronoboost is kind of being utilized right now, and not exactly on the Forge or the Cybernetics core. So, especially on a map like Deadwing, I'm not too surprised to see a Protoss player maybe try and go for that earlier 3rd expansion, maybe sometime in the next minute and a half or so. Wouldn't be too surprising to me. Just because it's such an easy 3rd expansion to defend. I mean, yeah, there's these destructible backdoor rocks that you kind of have to worry about, but I mean, your opponent has to take out these rocks and swing in from this entirely other angle to try and actually make use of them. It's actually really hard to make that whole thing work. So really, it's just this big ramp over here that you need to defend, and this ramp over here, which, yeah, destructible rocks could be knocked down, but once again, it's not actually as difficult if you see that your opponent's knocking those down to come in over here and suddenly your opponent's trying to take out the rocks with their army and they're basically trapping themselves in. It's actually a very, very awkward situation if they try and do that. So not too surprised to see a Protoss player maybe go for that earlier 3rd expansion. And yeah, once again, we do see that 3rd expansion going down. Gateways being added on in mass just because, not necessarily because he wants to go all in or anything, just because he really didn't have a whole lot of warp gates or gateways around. It's pretty much just that 1 gateway. He needs to add on a lot to actually get up that defense, because you know what, he's been probing up, he's been getting up those +1 weapon upgrades, etc., and now he's finally getting up the Twilight Council. Oracle that's hallucinated is going to be coming in. JonSnow not really reacting too much, pretty much on top of the fact that it's a hallucination, not really pulling any drones or anything, going super crazy overreactive. But he has gotten up to a relatively healthy drone count now. And that's something that you have to keep in mind. He did have to sacrifice a couple of things to get to that point. Obviously, he hasn't made any units, but there hasn't really been any kind of even light pressure coming out from the Protoss player. So it hasn't been the biggest concern whatsoever. And I would honestly say that JonSnow is actually looking to be in a pretty good position. Everything said and done, sitting up at 68 drones, now able to get up a lot of these Hydralisks with the Hydralisk Den finish up. He does actually have a Roachborn, I believe, as well, finishing up. Yeah, Roachborn now finishing up. So he should actually have units out just in time, just barely in time for this big push out from the Protoss player. But how many gateways do we actually have? 8 gateways. That's a pretty hefty number of gateways. Obviously not an all-in by any means, but Blink now coming out, Robotic Facility coming out behind this as well. I think the Protoss player is just going to try and see how much damage he can get done over here. He does have enough energy for that Mothership Core recall, so he's going to try and see, okay, can I get some big damage done over here? And with only a handful of Hydros actually out right now versus all of these sentries, oh man, JonSnow going to have to be so careful with this defense, because he could end up getting Force Fielded out very, very easily and end up taking a substantial amount of damage. It looks like the Protoss player gonna wait around, just try and clear out some of these Zelnuggle Watchtowers, see control of the map just a little bit before he decides to push in a single Zergling that was at the Zelnug Watchtower. Now going to move in over here to the natural expansion. Looks like it'll probably get taken out as a photon cannon. Still very, very effective from that earlier stage in the game. And I think the Protoss player may actually... Is he just waiting around for Blink? That actually would make a lot of sense. He has a lot of sentries over here, though. And oh, he could actually go after this 4th expansion now, realizing, you know what, I don't really need Blink or a whole lot of Force Fields actually try and take out that 4th expansion. He just moves in over here, throws down a couple of these Force Fields, a handful more Force Fields, could trap in a lot of those Zerglings and keep them away a lot of those Roaches and Hydros. And actually, now he can just try and take out that 4th expansion and immediately recall out, and that is exactly what he's going to go ahead and do. And immediately... coming back to his natural expansion, he's going to be in once again a very nice situation. Yeah, JonSnow didn't really lose a whole lot of drones over there. He's still sitting up 67 drones, but oh man, losing that 4th expansion is rather annoying considering he made a ton of units as well that honestly could have been maybe some extra tech or something that his gas was invested in. Maybe could have started a couple more upgrades, although if you take a look at this upgrade tab, I'm not sure that there's a whole lot more upgrades available. I mean, maybe Burrow or something cheeky like that, but JonSnow, he has a handful of these units. What is he going to decide to do with them? It looks like he's going to be trying to grab a Spire while he moves out across the map and tries to get some damage done. Now, doesn't actually have a whole lot of creep spread going out, so not able to move across the map very, very quickly. And of course, this does buy the Protoss player a little bit of extra time, try and get out a couple of units, but he doesn't really have any kind of robotics facility, Colossus or Immortals or anything out right now. The first Colossus is going to be Chrono Boosted on its way out right now, but the Destructible Rock's actually being taken out, and oh, the Protoss player going to have to get back into a good position to try and defend over there. But actually, this choke over here, his Wallen, could actually end up working out against him, because if JonSnow just takes out the Destructible Rocks, look at this, he jukes the entire army over to the natural expansion, gives himself time to get into a great spot over here at the 3rd expansion. He's going to be going after that, getting on top of a lot of these buildings over here, and guess what? Only the Blink Sarkis can really get past that wall in very, very quickly, and the 3rd expansion gets taken out immediately. JonSnow now sitting and kind of returning the favor over there from what happened earlier when his 4th expansion got sniped off. So nice Force Fields going down. The Protoss player is doing a pretty good job with the engagement so far, but oh man, he's just losing out on so much units, so many units. 4 warp gates actually get depowered. The Colossus is going to be the turning tide in that engagement, allow him to survive a little bit longer, but oh man, he ended up losing so much by losing that 4th expansion. Now there are a handful of these Zelts now doing some nice Warp Prism harassment over in the main base of JonSnow, but some Hydros going to be popping out. Are they going to be able to come out in time? No, the Spire does go down, but JonSnow, he's still been able to do a good amount of damage. I would say that he's been able to more than just equalize, considering his 4th expansion is back up now, but the main concern for JonSnow is going to be, can he defend against the big counter swing? Once again, those counter swings can be incredibly deadly. We saw it work out very well for JonSnow. Is it going to work out well for the Korean barcode Protoss player over here? Another Colossus is going to be popping out very, very soon. And chasing down 2 Hydros of very weirdly positioned Hydros. Maybe a little bit of a missed rally over there from JonSnow. But once there are about 2 or 3 Colossus out for the barcode Protoss player, he's actually going to be in a decent position to maybe try and do another push out. But, you know, I say that, but the Corruptors are now out on the map, right? And amazingly enough, there's not going to be a whole lot of Corruptors, just because you see that there is in fact no Spire in that production tab. These are just the Corruptors that he managed to sneak out right before that Spire ended up getting sniped off. Only 4 Corruptors, but that could very well just be a little bit of extra DPS that he needs and try and do some extra damage on those Colossus, take him out a little bit quicker, because oftentimes those Colossus can still be quite vulnerable in the earlier portions of the engagements. Now, +3 weapons has finished up on these Colossus. Force Fields going down, but these Colossus, they need to back up. Oh man, they actually take a lot of damage over here. The Corruptor's almost enough to actually finish off one of the Colossus. They could go back in over there and finish it off, and boom, down goes there one of those Colossus. Only 2 Colossus out on the map, so that does mean quite a bit. The Corruptor's actually not getting focus fire down. The 2nd Colossus gets taken out, and JonSnow gonna be able to barrel his way forth into the 3rd expansion once again. If he takes out this 3rd expansion, I don't think that the Protoss player is really gonna be able to defend over here anymore. I don't know if he's gonna be able to really do a whole lot in this game. He's down to a relatively even number of workers because he's once again going back in with that Zealot harassment over in the main base and actually going to be able to continue to do some harassment over in some of these other expansions of JonSnow. But I don't think it's going to matter. It's going to be trading off both workers and expansions in exchange for just workers. And at the end of the day, JonSnow is continuing to push on forward. He's actually trading relatively cost effectively because those 4 corruptors, these are the 4 corruptor hit squads coming out over here as they are able to snipe off so many of those Colossus, winning him the game. JonSnow gets the GG, the single G, to represent the fact that he's maybe playing on in the North American server. I don't know. We'll talk to JonSnow about that later, but also getting out the single Korean G. Bit interesting over there. But JonSnow going to be taking the ZVP with some fantastic play, and once again, just those counter swings, being able to utilize those and of course prevent his opponent's counter swing from doing too much more damage. So really well done by JonSnow. We're going to get some analysis from him as we go ahead and jump into that. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We will be right back. Hello, my name is Fear Dragon, and welcome back. I'm joined here by Out JonSnow George, and we're going to be jumping into the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, the analysis from the game you guys just witnessed. And, Jared, let's talk a little bit about this game. What exactly was going on in this game as we go ahead and resume the replay?
This was a weird game. He has a he does a can rush in the beginning, and I think it set me a little bit behind or ahead.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly, but it was just a weird situation. Let me go into like the macro play, and I tried just to abuse the map a little bit and kill him.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about that cannon rush as it does finally get to that point, but it felt exactly as you were saying, like you were really far behind, but just magically it seemed like, I don't even know, nothing happened for a little bit and you just seemed okay. Like what exactly happened during that period?
Well, he did a cannon rush versus I think it was a pool first. Or no, it was a hatch first.
It was a hatch first, yeah.
So I was behind, but like he didn't do too much damage. It was kind of really just weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't kill the hatch. He just kind of delayed everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're still all right because it was a big investment. It was gonna make the early game look a lot different.
Yeah, I think at the end of this, like you do manage to kill off the cannons before they kill off the actual hatchery.
Yeah.
But you end up being like, it's the big issue right now where you can see like you can't really drone up a whole lot right now because you get up the spine collar.
I'm down a ton of workers right now.
Yeah. You end up being like a good 10 workers down, which is kind of painful. Like,
yeah.
And also your third expansion is super delayed, like it's coming down around the 6-minute mark or so. You managed to get these Zerglings in, but
that was pretty good, but I don't think I killed much.
yeah, I don't think you actually killed. Did you kill anything? Well, you managed to kill 2 probes eventually.
Yeah, but I just don't think he capitalized on his situation. But like right about now, I'm getting ahead in workers. So I think I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
Because the only advantage that I did have was his tech was delayed also, which means I can just drone for days.
Mm-hmm.
Then he takes a fast third also.
Yeah, that's true. Do you feel like maybe this would be a scary situation if you went for like a 2-base pressure play then?
Yeah, maybe, but it's kind of risky because he didn't know how far ahead or behind he was. Because if he's like behind and he tries a 2-base pressure, then he just loses the game straight out.
Yeah.
But if he's ahead, maybe this is a better idea. I don't know. He goes for the standard, just like this is what everybody does on Korea. This like blink play.
Really? Okay. Yeah, going for the +2 like blink play, and he's actually unbelievably, like, I don't even know if I should call it patient or what, because he just like he pokes in, sees what you have, and then he just goes around, clears out the Zelnara watchtowers, warps it a couple more times. Like, do you feel like that was working out better for you or worse for you?
I think it worked out good for me, but I think it just depends how the engagement would have went. Because he did have a lot of sentries, and as you can see here, he hits a bunch of force fields, but he doesn't really kill anything. He actually loses a few units here and just recalls out. And I feel like with the blink play, you kind of want to do some damage, especially when he wasn't taking gases on his thirds. He was kind of all in with that push. But attacking up a ramp into Hydras with range and a spine crawler with queens, I can see why I didn't do it.
Yeah. Still, he does manage to snipe off that 4th expansion, but as you were saying, like and again, his tech is pretty far behind. His robotics bay is only just now finishing up. He does have nice upgrades, but do you feel like you're doing okay then?
Yeah, I think once I hit all my upgrades, my 2-2, I get the Spire Tech out, I think I was going to hit a really nice timing here. If you look at the map, you can see, like, when the rocks are down, there's two really weird entrances to the base. And with his army composition, it's really hard to move from the third to the natural and so forth.
Yeah. I've actually been wondering about this myself a lot. Is like, especially, I know that you have like the Roach Hydros play, and you actually managed to really take advantage of it with that. But I've always wondered with like Mutalisk and stuff, if, I don't know, Protoss players should go for like a gateway expand and actually just not wall off that ramp, because it makes it so difficult and annoying to defend.
Yeah.
You could see like you really take advantage of that just by like the fact that he has to use his blink to just get over his wall.
Yeah. I think it would have been better if he just left like 2 sentries at his natural and then just put all of his army at the third.
Yeah.
Then like he could just like permanently force fielded that. But after I took his third down, and now it's gonna be 4 base versus 2. Although my composition isn't gonna go well into the late game. Roach Hydra Viper or Roach Hydra Corruptor. But since his army is just so small, I think I could be able to strangle him out.
Okay, let's talk about the fact. So your Spire actually gets sniped off by the Warp Prism harassment, which kind of sucks. But you managed to get 4 Corruptors out. I'm just gonna say those 4 Corruptors are like the biggest ballers ever. Like they take out all the Colossus single-handedly, and there's only 4 of them. So like,
yeah.
What exactly was going through your mind? Did you kind of think like 4 Corruptors would be okay? Because you're not exactly remaking the Spire or anything.
Yeah. He since it's like he went for the blink play, he's not gonna have like 8 Colossus, in which the 4 Corruptors wouldn't have done anything. And he wasn't gonna have a ton of Stalkers to snipe him. So I thought that like it would just be like a normal Roach Hydra 2-2 push, but with a few Corruptors to snipe the Colossus. And you see here, I'm able just to take a nice engagement.
Yeah.
And these four Corruptors going for it.
Yeah, man, they don't get focus fire down at all, also, which is definitely really nice. I guess, like, that's the thing, right? Even as a Protoss player, I look at that, I'm like, oh, you don't really need to even respect those 4 Corruptors, but they end up killing off both of the Colossus. And from here on, like, I love what you're doing. We're just, like, putting the pressure on with most of your units and keeping those Stalkers back. But then you just, like, use the rest of them to kill off the 3rd expansion. Do you feel like it's pretty much one game at this point? Even with the Warp
Yeah, once I'm in the base, although my drone count is really low, it just makes my army count higher. It's been a really weird game. He's still doing the Warp Prism harassment.
Yeah, that's definitely been really annoying. He also has some pretty nicely placed proxy pawns and stuff, but at the end of the day, like, if you don't have any bases, doesn't matter how much harassment you do, right?
Yep. He just, in the end, he just didn't have enough units at all the stages of the game.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have any kind of other final thoughts about the game?
This is just using your army well on a map and abusing the ramps, you know, when you have 2 different ramps far away. And then from there, it's just capitalizing on the advantages you get. It's easy.
Yeah, and just kind of as a wrap-up, since this is the final game that we're doing any kind of analysis on, all of the games you submitted, for the most part, like, there were some weird kind of moments in them, but it wasn't like, oh, you're going for like this big all-in, or you're going for like this super crazy weird play. Like, for the most part, it just seemed like you went for like you decided upon a composition, you got up the economy for it, whatever economy was needed for that composition, and then you just kind of macroed up and pushed out and would either defend or like just go kill your opponent. Like, it seemed very straightforward and like very solid standard play. Is that kind of what you feel like you can pride yourself on?
Yeah, I think it's good. I still try to keep the aggressive nature of it in there.
Yeah,
like, I'm still attacking, trying to do damage, but definitely it's less of an all-in style. And I'm still kind of keeping the low drone count. Although, like, this is a style you could go up to 80 drones with and play a macro game if you didn't have any of those options to do damage.
Yeah, definitely. And I would definitely agree with you. Like, it does still have that aggressive feel to it. I mean, I can still feel the JonSnow of last year that was Roach bailing all inning every Terran play. I'm never gonna let that drop. But yeah, very cool. And we're gonna go ahead and jump into the final couple segments. Don't go anywhere, guys. We will be right back. Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Fear Dragon, and I'm once again joined here by Out JonSnow. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about kind of your performance and stuff. So, you've obviously, again, been on the show. Season 1, you're on Breaking Out. Season 2, you had some time to kind of think and, try out for stuff. And Here's kind of the interesting thing is you made it into WCS Challenger League Season 1 during arguably one of the times where it was the hardest point to make it into WCS. You actually made it over a lot of like some of the Chinese players like Ziguan and everything. There was no region locking. There were, I think, actually even some Koreans in the qualifier. But then 2014, you haven't really been able to make it in. I kind of asked you about this before, but what exactly is different now that makes you feel like you have that good opportunity to really get that breakout performance? Because I mean, just empirically right now, to be entirely frank, 2014 hasn't really seemed like your year.
It definitely hasn't. I think, especially with the WCS, I really kind of underperformed there. I think now, just like when I go on the ladder, when I play against other players, just like the way I feel right now, it just feels a lot different than it did a year ago. I think I'm in a lot different place, and confidence is definitely higher. And I think just going forward, I'm going to be practicing more and more efficiently. And I just plan to keep improving to a point where I think I'll be able to qualify for WCS without a doubt.
That also is really interesting, because I think something else that you've also said is that you feel like you're actually on the top of your form right now. So it's not even necessarily that, you're playing worse or something, you're going through a slump. You actually feel like you're playing better, but not exactly getting the results that I know you feel like you should be able to get now. Do you just feel like everyone else is also just getting that much better right now, or?
Yeah, definitely. I think the NA scene as a whole is kind of recuperating from a time where there wasn't really any events for it. Now we have like Red Bull and all these events where it's definitely a lot better for the NA players, and you're definitely seeing players like Bales and Arium coming out and they're practicing hard and doing well. So I think I'm still improving, but definitely maybe not as fast as other people did. So I still have to kind of kick it into gear and surpass them. I think people always told me that like my biggest weakness was I didn't play enough. I just wasn't putting the time in. And I think that's the one thing which I can really control. If I just put a lot of effort into it, I definitely can make the difference. I don't know how long that's going to take to fruition. Maybe it's going to be a month. Maybe it'll be at the many months. But whenever I can get to that level, I'll definitely take it.
What's been the hardest thing for you to make a name for yourself in the scene? Is it marketing? Is it just getting the big results in like those final matches of WCS? What is it?
I think it's definitely been just the results holding me back, kind of. Just not being at the center stage of big tournaments it's hard to make a name for yourself as a player. If you're like a personality and you're streaming a lot, I think you can definitely, you don't need the good results. Or if you have really like unique style. I think the way I'm trying to approach the scene, you need to be the best to, really break out into the scene. I don't think I'm there yet, which is kind of holding me back. I think I've been almost there a lot, which is probably the most frustrating thing. Just getting so close so many times.
You're getting really good results in the early rounds of things. You're beating really good players. That's actually the thing. Part of the reason why I feel like I just keep harping on this. Almost to the point where I'm starting to feel bad. I feel like I'm attacking. You might feel like I'm attacking you or something, but you're doing so well against certain players. But then it's always like at that last second, something seems to come up. Either you hit like this player that I don't know, you have a mental block against or something, or just like you get to that final round. And that does make me feel like, ask you, do you feel like nerves is like the big thing that maybe is holding you back?
I think it's like partly nerves, also kind of fatigue. I think that I'm not really good at just like, playing 40 games a day and going really hard like that. It really takes a lot out of me to be at my highest level and play really hard. So like at the end of those big qualifiers, like WCS, where it's late at night, it's like 12 o'clock, 1 in the morning, and then you have to play your A game. It's definitely hard to do.
So I guess that might also factor in maybe into the practice that you're trying to do, where you're saying you're going to try and play more. What would you actually say also would be your strongest and your weakest quality? Not necessarily just in StarCraft, but just as a person.
I think my strongest quality would probably be that I can put the time in and work hard at something. I'm really hard working. I think my weakest quality is that I don't think I have like the inherent skill that some players have that like makes them just really good without playing a ton. Like Guitar Cheese, he doesn't play as much as everybody else. He kind of just like leaves and then comes back and he's still the best in North America. And I think I don't have that kind of inherent skill that other people have, which is just my weakest quality.
And how exactly do you feel like those kind of strengths and weaknesses impact your life and kind of how you decide to lead your life both in reality and in StarCraft?
Like in the real world, when you're doing anything, I think you definitely have to put the hard work into and kind of make your day pretty efficient. You can't really just sit around and watch Netflix all the time and expect everything to get done. So I definitely have to put in the time to like study and also to practice in StarCraft and other things. So I think it's you can't rely just on how good you think you are.
With that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into the awesome game. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back. Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show by North American StarCraft 2 players that you need to know about. Today on the show, we're going into the awesome game of the week. And by week, I mean the day, because it is the day of JonSnow from Solaris Gaming, and today joined with me is none other than the amazing, the incredible, the fantastic Nan Man. Now, are you
How's
the real
it going,
Nan Man?
Robbie? I felt like you should have had sound effects going, like space and explosions and stuff when you were announcing the epic game.
Don't worry, Nan. You didn't see them, but everybody else saw the amazing sound or special effects and all the explosions that happen when we introduced the awesome game. Thank you so much, and shout out to @CNC Cybert. But Nan Man, are you ready for this game?
I am, and this is actually going to be a cool game to see because it is featuring two breaking out players with Believe and JonSnow in it. So if you guys have been following along in previous seasons, these guys should kind of jump out at you there. But why don't we start up, introduce the players, and we can talk a little bit more about them and the map and all that kind of good stuff there.
Alright, sounds good. As we spawn up here in the top left-hand corner of the map on top of the green Protoss player, we have, of course, representing, I have no idea what team. It looks like right now Micro Gamers, I think. I think that he left Micro Gamers now, though. But regardless, long intro aside, green Protoss player, Believe.
And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, representing Solaris Gaming, a red Zerg player spawning down in the south. He is JonSnow.
Alright, and then you actually just brought up a really good point, is the fact that both these guys are breaking out players. And the funny thing is, JonSnow is now in his second season of breaking out. He was in the season 1, and he's now in season 3. Believe is in season 2 though, so they haven't actually been in the same season together, but they have been on the same team together. They're actually former teammates from Core Gaming, and that's actually probably the reason why you see them talking so much about their thoughts on the game.
Yeah, they are very familiar with each other, their styles, the way that they play. And that's another thing, too, is being on the NA ladder when you guys are kind of all around the same skill level in that GM level, you get to run into each other quite often. And, when you do, you might start having this friendly banter. They're talking about Protoss players for a little bit there, talking about San and stuff like that. So that's really cool to see that friendly banter actually take place in games. It doesn't have to be so super hardcore about it. You can still have some fun. Be like, you know what? Let's see what actually happens between these two guys when they're at that even level and even playing field like this. But what do you think about King Sejong Station in PvZ here?
Well, you know what, Nan Man? There's two letters that I think best represent how I feel about this map in this matchup. And you might actually kind of know about it. It's often said and known very well by librarians. It's SH. It's shh, because swarm hosts are freaking amazing on this map, man.
That is true. That is true. I'm sure if you guys have watched any games on King Sejong Station that has been PvZ, you've probably seen at least one swarm host game.
Every PvZ devolves into swarm host play on this map. Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't actually put it past JonSnow to go for something like that. It's not something that I haven't seen him go for, which is a very confusing way to put it. But I think I've seen some games of JonSnow going for Swarmos in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as a Zerg player, you have to be familiar with all the different kind of styles, and there are clearly styles and builds that are much better on certain maps than others. So as a player like JonSnow, he's got to be familiar with that. And actually, we got the first couple Lings going to be getting in here, doing a little bit of scouting, poking up. Not really able to do any damage, but just that initial information that he got from that. So, okay, you've got the Zealot, your Mothership Core's out, no gas taken at your natural as of yet. So that's at least good intel for JonSnow to know about how things are working out timing-wise for Believe here. And, right after those Lings get out, he throws down the Forge, starting to gear up, and not really revealing any sort of tech there. He's got his Stalker currently in his main base that can very easily snipe off any of the Overlords that are going to be coming in soon. And yep, there's the first one poking in over on the top side for JonSnow.
Yeah, and kind of interesting, actually. I believe it even chrono boosted out that Stalker. Just maybe he was looking to do something a little bit cheeky. And honestly, I wouldn't put it past Believe. Believe has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, based on either macro or even just kind of all-in-ish sort of tricks. And JonSnow, he's going to be coming in with both of his Overlords, kind of tried and true standard Zerg trick. Yep. So should be able to get a good scout off, but honestly, there's nothing really down just yet.
Yeah, and that's because both these players kind of have that unspoken agreement. You know what? Let's just get 3 bases up, and then we'll start actually really developing our tech at this point in time. But JonSnow still has to be, careful and check and make sure that there's nothing out of the ordinary. And the positioning of things, I don't believe he got to scout the Twilight Council, did he? Where's the?
No, he went up there actually a little bit earlier. So it's actually one of my favorite tricks as a Protoss player to do. Is as soon as an Overlord walks over a position to scout out that area, you immediately throw down the building in that area, because the Zerg player just checks off that area and says, you know what? I've looked at that position. I've seen that there's no buildings over there, and suddenly there's a building over there.
Trickery all around there, and JonSnow still trying to find any sort of information out. Sends those lings up, saw the 3rd base coming up here, saw that there was the cannon. He couldn't really get in and do any damage to it. There wasn't even any probes transferred over there, so he says, okay, let's check out the natural a little bit again, and sees completely walled off, no way to really be able to get in there with those zealots and stalkers kind of locking down that front door. So he falls back at this point in time, and really he's going to be developing his tech now that that lair is going to be finishing up. But you've talked a little bit about how swarm hosts are a factor on this map, but what do you think that we're going to be seeing out of JonSnow that now that his lair is going to be finished?
Well, we actually do have a 4th expansion just being taken right now, and I'm kind of curious, like, right now, JonSnow doesn't really seem super committed to anything outside of just the fact that he's going to get up some roaches, because he's getting up that +1 missile attacks, and he's going to be getting up the Hydralisk stun, so yeah, this actually does make a lot of sense. Good for that Roach Hydralisk playstyle. I really don't hate it all that much. You can always go for Swarmos a little bit later on if you so choose to, although honestly, I wouldn't hate JonSnow if he didn't go for Swarmos and make this a 50-minute long game. But out of Believe, it's kind of interesting. We do see the +2 weapons being researched. Blink is going to be finishing up. This is actually a pretty common push to do as a Protoss player these days. Off of 2 bases or 3 bases, you go for the +2 Blink attack. You can actually get a lot of damage done if your opponent's unprepared. Now, Demon, do you think JonSnow is going to be prepared for this?
I do. I mean, JonSnow does usually a very good job about his defenses here, and he's got that +1 missile attack on the way. He's getting the Glory Reconstitution and opting actually for the Groove Spines in this. And that's going to be really important if there are those sentries to do those force fields. Having that extra range on the Hydralisk is going to be super, super crucial. But it's also going to come down to having scouting information. Those lings we see running around on the map, we see the watchtowers taken, the overlords, getting idea of where this attack is going to be coming from. Is he going to try to be going for that 4th base, or is he going to be going for the 3rd base? The 3rd base is actually a really, really scary spot to be fighting against, because that cavern kind of stuck right in front of that. There's going to be very easily able to force field that area off, blink back, keep your stalkers alive. So that's something that every Zerg player does have to keep in mind when they are going to be defending that position here. But that's Hydralisk count is getting higher and higher. So just pure gateways is not going to be enough to kind of defeat that.
And it looks like JonSnow is now moving in with his Overseer. He sees the Twilight Council. He sees a decent number of gateways, and he sees the robotic facility just getting an observer out. So I think especially with these extra gateways he sees added on there, and all of these stalkers that just now reveal Blink, JonSnow should have a very, very good idea of what's going to be coming. He's getting out a lot of Hydralisks now. Hydralisks can do well against Blink stalkers, but it's only in large enough numbers that the blink doesn't really get factored in. You just can't blink fast enough against the Hydrals. But in smaller numbers, I mean, when you've seen players with actually as good a control as Believe, you do have to be very, very careful, because the blink can still be done against Hydrals if you have good enough control.
That is true, and that is going to be a key factor. And we do see Believe starting to move out. He did get those hallucinating Phoenix in there, got the timing of things, saw that there is that hive coming up here. He also did get to see, all right, you know what? I know that your 3rd base is over here. You probably have tried to take a 4th base at this point in time. Let's see if I can go out and make something happen. But, ooh, JonSnow going to try to meet him. Couple force fields going down. Not the best. We can see having to use 4, which we could have very easily have done a little bit better with 2 or 3 there to kind of siphon off a few forces. But, now JonSnow is kind of in that panic mode. Got to make sure he's got his forces where they need to be for this engagement here. But that's a lot of force fields available to Believe.
Oh, this is beautiful positioning over here from Believe. He actually gets the perfect force field off and just traps out the entire army of JonSnow. Is going to be able to pick off the hatchery, and honestly can just recall out of there. Oh, the Mother Shakori gets taken out!
Wow, he started the recall, but the Hydralisk and Queens there able to snipe that off, and now Believe have to scramble to get back home there. So, very, very nice pickup there for JonSnow. Yes, he does lose his 4th base, but look at the supply difference right now. JonSnow's pretty much maxed out, and now Believe is going to be taking a lot more damage for this star because he has to blink on back and try to get back, and now he's got to be the one to be defensive. And we see The Vipers have started to get produced here. We know that Colossus kind of were the next little setup for Believe, so being able to abduct those, get those out of the way, and be able to snipe them off is going to make things really, really tough for Believe. But big Warpin's coming out. He's got a lot of gateways available to him right now, and we're going to have to see. Here comes the Roaches from JonSnow swinging their way around, and this is going to be a tough little angle here to defend for Believe. He's got to make sure he's got a good position, separates his forces to be able to fight on both sides, doesn't want to lose too much over there, and will actually be losing a couple of probes. Those Roaches and Hydralisks are doing a great job picking off gateways as well, but looks like Believe swinging his way around will be able to start cleaning up those couple of Roaches, but not before they slither their way through actually into the middle line, picking off more and more probes. So much being killed off already. 9 end up getting killed off before they're cleaned up, so pretty decent trade-off, killing a few of his Roaches. He was pretty much maxed out at that point that it didn't really matter too much to JonSnow, but yeah. What would you like to see out of Believe now, Robbie, after that sort of defense that he did?
Well, okay, you look at what Believe has left. He's lost a lot of the sentries. If you remember that push that he did out with the +2 Blink Stalkers, he had like 12 sentries out, or at least 10 sentries out. Now he has a lot of Blink Stalkers and he has a lot of Colossus. Now, the Colossus are going to do relatively well against the Roach Hydralisk push. I think that he has 3. He should be going and trying to be aggressive right now, but he needs to have the Colossus with him. The Blink Stalkers, yeah, they can do some nice harassment by themselves, but on creep, you still end up taking some damage even on the retreat, even with Blink.
Oh, and this is going to be tough here. He loses a couple when he's trying to retreat on back. That's a lot of Zerg forces coming in here. The Vipers, where are those abducts? We need to see some. There's one pull, takes the Colossus out, and there Time Warp's trying to get thrown down. Zealots streaming their way in from the back to get up there, and that's doing a good job. Colossus, 2 in the back, still getting a good amount of DPS, not able to get abducted there. It looks like Believe will be able to hold things off here. Nice positioning of his forces. JonSnow now got to make sure he keeps those Hydras alive. They're very, very important in this fight right now, and he's scrambling to get them on back. Supply is now starting to kind of even up between the two, and looks like Believe able to secure his 4th base in all this. So things are not kind of going to be a quick 1-2 punch out of either of these players. They both going at it, nice little slugfest here. So I'm liking this kind of even battle between the two.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this game so far. Now, just in terms of upgrades, we weirdly kind of see them even-ish on upgrades. I mean, +2, +1 down for JonSnow, and +3 weapons is finished up now for Believe. He's going to be pushing in once again, has his 3rd Colossus in the mix again, but there's actually no Vipers. Okay, the Vipers are here for JonSnow, but they're still gathering that energy for the Abduct.
Ooh, they are, and Stalkers trying to move their way forward to snipe him. They were able to get one, but losing a lot of Stalkers in the process. Colossus now turned to fight and all this. There goes the Mothership Core as well. One Abduct goes off, snipes the Colossus super quick. Force field's trying to go down, but a little bit too late, allowing that Zerg force to be able to scramble on out of there. But, you know, Believe can't, you know, engage too much in after he takes this base out. He basically realizing, you know what, I have a strong enough force here, can snipe this, but I don't want him to stay around much longer than that. I mean, it's clear when JonSnow retreats like this, he's kind of gearing up for another big push like this. With the Broodlings coming in, they help out a little bit, but without those Vipers, it makes it tough to deal with the Colossus right now.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the reasons why a lot of players don't necessarily go for Roach Hydralisk in this matchup, is just because you're so dependent on getting those Abducts off with the Vipers to make it work out. And you know, now we're going to be seeing Corruptors coming out, as well as a Greater Spire being morphed in for JonSnow. And honestly, Nanman, it's actually been a while since I have really seen a lot of Broodlords made.
Yeah, it is a rare thing. I mean, if you guys maybe were watching StarCraft 2 back Wings of Liberty time period, you would have seen so many Broodlords. But Heart of the Swarm, they've kind of fallen off a lot more. So I love to see kind of this throwback to such a powerful unit like this. And with the kind of army composition that we're seeing out of Believe and JonSnow, I love the idea of seeing the Broodlords. I wouldn't even mind seeing the Infestors get added in here to help out, keep some of those Blink Stalkers in place. But we're going to have to see. I mean, did he add on any more Vipers at this point in time, or is he just going straight up Corruptor Broodlord at this point?
I think he's just going straight up Corruptor Broodlord at this point. I mean, really the big fear of for going for Broodlords for a lot of Zerg players is the fact that there could be Tempest out, and Tempest will just murder your Broodlords. It's not actually even funny. But the thing is, if you look at Believe right now, he is not actually in a good position to start getting on Tempest. He doesn't even have his Stargate down. He'd have to throw down the Stargate, wait for that to finish, get up the Fleet Beacon, wait for that to finish, then start Chrono Boosting out Tempest and wait for those to finish. It's actually such a long ways away that this could actually work out really, really well if he's able to get out a couple more Broodlords. He has 5 out right now. That's a decent number.
That is a very strong number, and with this we see Believe go take out that 4th base again, but at the same time JonSnow had a Roach hit squad come in here, snipe that Templar Archives there, and now they're going to be able to come in and do a little bit more damage. A couple Zealots getting warped in, they're going to clean that up, so very, very nice. And Believe still trying to find the angle, but the Broodlords have been revealed. We see the Broodlings raining down on top of that army, so now kind of Believe is aware of the situation, aware how he's going to be having to fight this out. And he does have some High Templars, but I don't believe he's gotten Storm Research, no, so he just has to get them into Archons at this point in time. And there we do see a big aggressive Blink coming in, taking out Broodlord after Broodlord, but we see Transfuse coming out. There's a lot of Queens underneath, as well as the Roaches, and it looks like JonSnow's army is a little bit too much.
Yeah, the Transfuses actually just kept those Broodlords alive for quite a bit of time. Yeah, the first couple of volleys and the Stalkers are able to one-shot those Broodlords, but eventually the Stalkers end up falling, and the Queens are able to save those Broodlords. There's still actually a good bit of Queen energy left over. JonSnow is going to press his advantage and go after that 4th expansion. Believe recalled over that 4th expansion, try and get into a better defensive position. It may end up working out. Well, over here, the Broodlord's a little bit overextended.
Ooh, almost snipes one, but then falls back right to that Queen Transfuse again. Now we see Roaches trying to trickle in from both sides. Oh, nice job taking out that rock tower. We do see a little bit of a block coming in, so he only has one entrance in, with the exception of
Warp Prism in the main base!
Oh my gosh, this is going to be such a cool fight. We see DT, so many DT gets warped in, took out the Hive, going to start taking out all the tech structure here, but the fight over this 4th base is the key thing here for Believe. If he can hold this off, he's going to be in a phenomenal position here, but it is a struggle right now with the amount of Stalkers he has. He can't get close enough to take out those Broodlords. There's too many Queens and Roaches underneath. Oh, there's more Vipers now. This is looking very tough. He abandoned ships, takes his probes on out of there. Ravi, how are things looking over on JonSnow's side of the map?
Oh man, JonSnow is losing everything right now. He's going to be losing the Greater Spire as well. Very soon, the Hydral's Den going to be the next target after the Infestation Pit. And you have to remember, the Hive tech got sniped off. It's going to be so difficult to actually get a couple of DTs still left over in the main base, while the rest of them get picked up at the War Prism to go over to the Natural Expansion. He wants to cut off the economic stability of JonSnow and prevent those reinforcements, because right now, he's trying to get up his Stargate. He's trying to get up a response. He blinks on top of the Broodlords. He manages to snipe off 2 of the Broodlords, but loses a Colossus in return.
Oh, he does. Now, we did see that Believe transition to the Stargate tech. He was able to get 3 Void Rays up and running, which is very, very important here, but there's still some Hydralisk in this army. There's still a lot of Queens available, so it's very, very important about that army control right now. JonSnow kind of stuck over in this corner. This is his fighting force. His main base is kind of ravaged right now. The DTs are still doing work at the expansions. Looks like there is a hatch still left alive. He's trying to build a spawning pool, but old DT's getting dropped out. The War Prism does get sniped, but there is no vision right here for those DTs landing out. We do see back over JonSnow pushing in at Believe's 3rd base. Believe now trickling back up into his natural to kind of hold the line here. Hope that he can make something happen, warping in a few units so he can get some Archons going, but this is a very, very close match between both these players right now.
Right now, man, this just draws me back to that big Templar Archive snap-off. Imagine if there was Storm. This would be an entirely different game, but there is no Storm. In fact, there's just so many High Templars that don't really have the capability of helping out that much. Dark Templar actually in the mix. Oh my god, did Believe snipe off the Overseer?
Oh, I don't see
There's
any
no
right
Overseers.
now. Oh my gosh, this is huge. This is the chance that he needs to be able to kind of stop things right now, stop him in his place, and losing the Stalkers, though, is not going to be very, very helpful. He's got to be able to clean up as much as he can. The Colossus still left alive. He still has those Void Rays, and oh my gosh, he's got the High Templar, but he still has no Storm. Those are just sitting there. He needs to make those into an Archon right now. If he can be able to take out a few of these anti-air units, we've only got about 5 or 6 of those Hydralisk left alive. Queens, good feedback coming down, getting rid of that energy. But oh, Abduct comes out. Will be able to try to take the Void Ray. Does not get the snipe off. At the same time, we do see the hatch and the spawning pool getting cleaned up over here by Believe with the DT. There is a hatch that did get rebuilt over on the right-hand side of Believe's base, but this is looking dire right now. I don't know. Really, there's not much Believe has left as a fighting force. He's got those DT, but I don't know if he knows where the extra bases are right now for JonSnow.
The big problem for Believe right now is that he doesn't have any probes out on the map. He has a couple of probes in the natural expansion. They need to be running away. He doesn't have enough money to build an assimilator even.
Oh no, he's only got 20 minerals now, so he basically has to find those buildings and be able to kill them off and hope that all of his stuff does not die in time. At this point, I would have linked those Stalkers out of his main base, send them on down, abandon ship with those, go out on the map with the Void Rays, go out on the map with those Stalkers, and just let your buildings die and say, you know what, I'm going to cut my losses, see if I can kill all of your stuff before you kill my stuff. And at this point, now he kind of got stuck where he's like, I'm just going to sit in my base and hope my DT can do the best they can. But he's found the hatch now with the DT. He's dealing the damage over there. At the same time, I believe that there's not much more. We see 2 extractors and 1 hatchery left at this point in time. We see the drones scrambling to build some extractors. One of them does escape. Another one's trying to build the extractor. But DT do snipe off that drone. Do we have any more drones left?
This is the last assimilator. Nan, this is the last assimilator.
Oh, no.
Jon Snow's going to win this game.
Oh, my gosh. GG. That was so good.
Oh,
that was so good.
And it was down to these 2 extractors and this single building extractor left over. Do we have any more drones left? No, that was it. That was the last drone building that last extractor.
Oh my gosh! So it came down to it. If he had gotten those Stalkers out and gotten those Void Rays out, look, the Void Rays are coming over right now. If they had left earlier, it would have been Believe's game.
Well, there's still an extractor over in the center of the map that was going to be the problem. I'm not sure whether Believe. No, he had vision of it, but it's so hard to tell that sometimes. Right. It's so hard to realize, like, oh, actually, no, he was sending. I think he was sending 2 DTs over to that center extractor. Oh, man, if he had had 15, 20 more seconds, he could have won this game. And that just comes down to it, man. Like, imagine one situation where he was able to keep that Templar Archives alive, but no, Jon Snow sniped that off. And, of course, he also just made sure that Believe didn't have enough minerals to build anything else, even though he had the pros, the natural expansion.
I think that sort of scramble reaction of Believe is like, I got to get Void Rays up as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Throws down 3 Stargates. Maybe if he had thrown down 2, had that little bit of extra resources. Instead.
There's a million what ifs we could be doing right now, man. But at the end of the day, Jon Snow comes out victorious in the crazy base trade scenario. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Man, where can people catch you at since we're wrapping things up?
Of course, I am Nanman, or the real Nanman, as you guys will find me online, Twitter, Twitch, all that good stuff. I, of course, do SC2 Up and Coming every week. It is Mondays, 9 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/therealnanman. We focus on the up-and-coming scene, like Breaking Out, like WCS, all that sort of good stuff there. So if you want to check out more content that I do, check me out over there on twitch.tv/therealnanman.
All right, sounds good, man. And of course, guys, we're going to be jumping back into the show. We're going to be pretty close to the end, but there's still a couple of cool segments that I think you guys will enjoy left over. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Fear Dragon. Once again, we're joined here by Jon Snow. How you doing, man?
Still doing awesome.
That's good to hear. It's been a good show so far. We're starting to close up. We've kind of played the last game and everything, the awesome game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. But let's talk a little bit about your future. What exactly do you kind of want out of StarCraft? Do you just want to make it in WCS Premier League? You just want to beat Guitar Cheese and make him cry and say Jon Snow's better than me and gotta retire off Solaris game? Like, what is your goal? A GSL championship? Make some money?
I think my goal would just be to always be a part of the kind of like the tournament scene and be able to compete for a while. I think if I can just like keep it as a really good hobby and hopefully go to tournaments, and even if I don't win them, just like be able to compete and have fun. That's like a really good goal for me.
It sounds like your goal is kind of not necessarily results. It's more just you just enjoy being a part of the scene. Do you think that's like been a more positive or negative effect on the way that you kind of treat your practice and everything?
I think it's been a little of both. Like, I mean, I'm not as crushed when I lose and don't, get the best results, but it's also been like kind of negative because I'm not pushing myself as hard as I could, and maybe I'm not achieving what I could.
And I think actually in some ways that maybe shows, just because I mean you've been like this very long-standing, consistent player. I mean you've been like on the verge of breaking out in a sense for like over a good year now. Like you've been able to get so close. You haven't quite been able to make it over the edge, I know. But you've been like this very well-respected player for a very long time now. Like there are very few players I've been meeting who don't really at least have a good deal of respect for you. It seems like mostly you're just kind of making your name out for the viewers rather than for actual players. Because I've only heard, for the most part, positive things about you in the sense that your gameplay is good. There are some people that dislike your all-ins. Your all-ins from last year, but you're a different person now, right?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah, just have them keep believing that so that they don't prepare for the all-ins now.
Yeah. That's all about.
But would you ever consider going full-time? Talked about like how you want to go into college and everything. You more prefer to do the suppy thing, go to school and also be a badass at StarCraft. But I don't know, after college, do you maybe even tend to take a break during college and take some time off going full-time?
Maybe it's always a possibility. If I'm doing really well or think I can do really well, I definitely I'd consider it. Maybe take like a gap year, or after like 4 years, maybe I'd stop for a year, something like that. But it just depends how good I am at the time and how much I believe in myself. It's pretty risky, to go full time and try to put all your hopes into StarCraft, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, what would it take for you to feel like you were doing well enough to try and take that kind of risk? Would it have to be like making a Premier League, or would it have to be something bigger than that?
I think it'd have to be bigger than that. I think it'd have to be like actually like getting top 4, top 2 in major tournaments like Red Bull or MLGs.
I'm not gonna lie, man, that's a pretty big goal. It just isn't happening anymore. Even for like the best North Americans and some of the best Europeans.
If I was like to go full time, I definitely have to like show that I have like really good potential.
I'm just gonna say, like, it sounds like it's a goal for the far out future, because realistically, making it from almost making it a Challenger League and everything to suddenly getting top 4 finishes, that seems like a pretty big jump. So I assume that'll take some time.
Yeah, that'll definitely be like maybe even like Legacy the Void. It'd be way down the road.
What exactly can people expect from you? Why should people root for you? Why are you a better player to root for than, say, anybody else in either breaking out or, heck, even some of the more established North Americans?
I think that I just have a lot of potential for the future. I'm not going to retire and leave, kind of like Idra and Stefano. I feel like that was like the worst thing, rooting for them, and then they're just gone. I'm like, oh, darn. I think I'll be here for a while, and hopefully I can be that, North American hope, which I feel like there hasn't really been a really strong one. Even like Scarlet is really great, but sometimes she's flaky, doesn't go to some events, does really well, and then gets knocked out. It seems like it's really hard right now for anyone who's not Korean to dominate. Even in like the Korean scene, it seems like there's a new champion every other day.
JonSnow said it himself. He's not necessarily going to win immediately, but you know what? He's going to be in there and it actually makes sense. You've already kind of said the reason why you're in StarCraft is not necessarily because you want all the prize money or anything. It's not necessarily just, I need to get first place or I'm out. You're in it for the long haul, and I have a lot of respect for that and that kind of degree of, you know what, you just actually enjoy the game. You actually just enjoy competing. So I'm looking forward to seeing more from you. But ladies and gentlemen, that is actually going to be it. So don't go anywhere. We still actually have the fun segment coming up where we're going to make a Jared over here embarrass himself just a little bit.
Oh, man.
But before we jump into that, Jared, do you have any kind of shout outs that you want to do before we jump to the last segment?
Sure. I want to shout out my team, Solaris Gaming, and their sponsor, StarCraft 2 Highlights. And just anyone else who's been on the NA ladder, helping me improve, It's pretty lonely. That's pretty much it.
It's a lonely journey, JonSnow. Yeah, definitely check out JonSnow. All the links to his Twitter, Twitch, etc. should all be in the Twitch comments or in the YouTube description. I think I got those right. Yeah, YouTube description. Yeah. And be sure to check him out, especially since you have been streaming a good bit more than you used to.
Yeah, I stream from time to time. Definitely should do it more, but sometimes I'm lazy.
Well, hopefully you get more on top of that, but definitely check him out. And of course, if you did enjoy the show, do consider following the channel over here on twitch.tv/FearDragon64 and youtube.com/FearDragon64 for all of the VODs. And that's going to be it, guys. Don't go anywhere. We're going to jump into that final segment before we close out the show. So stick around. See you guys in a second. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fear Dragon, and I'm once again joined here by Jared JonSnow George. Jared, it's time. It's time for the embarrassing segment. How you feeling about this, man?
It's going pretty good. We'll see how it. I haven't done a full rehearsal yet, so we'll see how this goes.
Come on, man. What are you going to be doing today?
I'm going to be doing an Immortal impression.
Immortal impression. Are you going to be doing Immortal doing anything in particular, or just like?
This is just going to be going through his Immortal activities that he's going to do his dance.
His normal daily activities, he walks around and then he decides to spontaneously burst into dance. This is the life of an Immortal.
Yeah, you go around, you kill everything, and then Pro-Toss players so far ahead, he just dances his Immortals. Just how it goes normally.
Well, this does actually ring a lot of bells to me right now. A lot of Immortal Century bells. Maybe one day, like when you're on Breaking Out season like 7, hopefully hopefully by that point you'll have broken out and I'll be allowed to have you on the show. But if you are, you can be a Sentry, and then we can just put the two together. We'll like or like white screen you since you have a white background. Put them right together, and we can actually make a movie about Immortal Century all this.
It'll be good.
So let's go ahead and jump into it. Oh, you got the balls.
I return to serve. I'm an immortal.
Oh my god, that was beautiful, man. Thank you for that. The Gungam style at the end definitely I appreciate that. I'm probably gonna get content flagged, so thank you for that. But I'm just kidding. Shh. I made that song from scratch. That wasn't a Gundam style. I decided to write a song to express my feelings of how an immortal feels all the time after winning a game of Immortal Century.
That's how it goes.
Alright, man. Well, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Guys, Out JonSnow George, check out all the links for his stuff over in the chat or just down below the video on YouTube. We'll see you guys next week with some more players who are going to be most likely players to break out of the North American scene.